The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we are coming to you live from a back room in my house. In fact, it's raining here in Los Angeles. And so if you start hearing the pitter patter of drumming, it is not a drum circle in my house. It is the rain. And you caught me putting on some moisturizer because, like all of you, I'm washing my hands compulsively, and I have the hands of a 98-year-old woman who worked in a coal mine. And like it's crazy what a difference it makes just to put a little lotion on every once in a while. So I've got the whole thing where my knuckles are starting to like crack and bleed. This is not good. It used to be that way. I went to college in upstate New York. And sometimes, you know, just the winter, it would just take it right out of your hands and your knuckles would crack and bleed. It's not a good situation. You got to keep on top of it. So there I am. Hey, can I also tell you too, because I meant to tell you guys this the other day, that we had Dr. Temple Grandin on the show with us the other day, and we got to talking about, she and I went to NASA a couple of years ago, and I had an inside connection, and I arranged for a tour of NASA, the Johnson Space Center, for her, and that I could be there and videotape it. And I have the videotape. We got to do something with that at some point because it was amazing. Can I just tell you, to be at NASA, if you're a space geek, come on. And I am. To be at NASA with Temple Grandin and a bunch of astronauts, stop. Like I was in seventh heaven. But, so we were sort of relating. At one point, we got a tour. They have a life-size model of the International Space Station on the floor. And usually when people do the extra special tour, they get to walk by it. Well, when you're Temple Grandin, you get to go in it. And when you're there filming with Temple Grandin, you get to go in it by yourself with a camera and wait to catch the shot of Temple coming into the space station. Oh my gosh, so exciting. So anyway, she and I had a really good time that day and kind of bonded over it. It was crazy, crazy good. So we were talking on the show about that, this being in isolation kind of is sort of what it must be like for the astronauts, right? That they're up there and they're, they can't go out to get groceries. They have to order them. And right. And they have to get along and they have to know that it's for a period of time and that it's for a greater good. And, so she was making the case of let's be like the astronauts. Let's manage our things. So she called me back the other day. And of course, I'm looking for it. I don't know why I can't find it. I am going to locate it. She gave me, after we got all done, she found a website where you can go and watch videos of what it's like being in the space station. And she and I were just giggling on the phone because they had one video that was about how you make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So she was listening to it and narrating it for me. It was probably one of the funniest things that's ever happened to me in my life because she was just giggling away. Okay, here it is. It's called, all you have to do is Google a day in the life of the International Space, aboard the International Space Station, a day in the life aboard the International Space Station. And they have tons of videos. And if your kids like that kind of thing and want to geek out, she want to make sure that I told you guys. So that's my message of love to you from Dr. Temple Grandin. And we're hoping to have her on again. And we're even going to see if we have the potential to have her on with her mom. Like, I know, crazy, crazy, crazy. Traven, it's set up a little bit different for me, so I don't know if they've got picture and sound or whether I'm just teeny tiny, but it's my non-traditional life is saying hello. We're thrilled to have you here. Okay, so want to just talk for a second about the fact that we are here and we're going to keep being here as long as we have an internet connection. Like keep on internet, right? We're here live Monday through Friday at this time. It's 10 a.m. in the morning Pacific time. Math, it's 1 p.m. Eastern time. So you can catch us right after the Cuomo in New York, right after the Cuomo, what do they call those? The live press conference for the day, and then tune into Autism Live. And this is Card Spirit Week. So in honor of that, we are, they can't hear you yet unless you are watching the show. I see. Talking to somebody else. Okay, so I just wanted to say that we're doing extra shows this week. So we're going to be back here at 2 p.m. Pacific time. So do the math. That's 5 o'clock Eastern time. And we're going to be doing very special shows. I'm going to be here live with Dr. Dorian Grandpichet, and we're going to be talking about some really amazing people during this emergency that are real life heroes. So I'm so excited about that. Can't wait to do that with Dr. Grandpichet at 2 o'clock Pacific time, 5 p.m. Eastern time. Please do the math wherever you are. Now, there are lots of ways to watch the show. As always, we hope that you are tuning in a way that fits for you. I don't know if Traven has the ability to show you the graphic. Excuse me. Now I'm going to have a tickle. The graphic that shows you all the different ways that you can watch the show. We love it when you guys tune in, whether it's on Facebook or YouTube, and give us real questions. Excuse me. It's not COVID, it's a tickle. I promise. Have you seen all those memes about I have allergies, not COVID? Well, that's me. Excuse me. Okay, so take a look. Of course, you can be watching us live on Twitter, Facebook, Periscope, and YouTube. That's the live side. And you can be writing and you can watch. Fabulous. Now, on the other side are all the places, some of the places actually, that we podcast. It's a free podcast available on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Deezer. Check it out. But of course, you can always be watching us at autism-live.com. When you go there, lots and lots to do. And we hope that you'll check out our library of videos. If you're looking for something for your kiddos to do and you need a new reinforcer, check out our toy guide. And you can always chat anonymously at the bottom of the page. So there we go. Thrilled that you guys are here. So we've got a big show for you today. And this week especially, we wanted to do some in-depth interviews with people and get a little bit more time with them. Because, sometimes we have somebody on and it's like run on, run off, and we get somebody else. So this week we kind of streamlined a little bit, and we are, I know it's my view of things that is messing things up. Okay, there we go. So we've got a great return guest who is just remarkable, that's going to be joining us in a few minutes after we do our morning rigmarole. You're going to love her if you haven't seen her before, but truly an amazing young woman. And of course, I'm talking about Lillian Carrier. So she'll be joining us in just a few minutes. But there are a couple of things that I like to say at the start of the show. And one of them is that, we have experts on the show from various different aspects of the autism community. And by the way, we welcome everybody here. This is for the larger autism community. That starts, of course, with individuals on the spectrum. Of course, it starts with them, but it also includes everybody who loves them, right? So whether that's a parent or a sibling, we've got a great sibling story for you today. Whether it's a teacher or grandparent, we welcome those people to be here too, because we know that while it's not one size fits all, we all have one thing in common, and that's that we care about individuals on the autism spectrum and making sure that they get employment opportunities, that they have housing opportunities, that they are treated with the dignity that they deserve, right? Have access to the resources that they need as individuals. So, but on top of that, we invite experts. I always like to remind you that I am not one of them. No, My role here is just to sort of be moderator. I used to say like an old time switchboard operator. I want to hook you up to the things that you want. And we love it when you guys write in questions and tell us what you need. So what I need is someone who can cut hair better than I, because have you noticed it's getting shorter? I told Dr. Gramsci, I'm systematically desensitizing our audience to me being bald, because every day I take off a little bit more. We're going to do a montage at some point of Shannon's hair since COVID. You will see that it has changed dramatically, much, much shorter. And it's, it's just, I think we should have a pool to see what day am I bald. Like, it's not, people are having pools about what day are we going to return to. I think we should do the pool about what day will Shannon be bald on the show, because I think that's coming sooner, folks. Okay, so having said all of that, we welcome you here. I hope that you will be here and write in and tell us what you need, because I know that I know everybody's got different things going on, right? But we're all in this together. I can't stress that enough, right? So, and I'm here with you, and our guests are here with you, and we care about you. So write in and tell us what you need. Having said all that, we like to start Monday morning with something we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym. We try to figure out what in the hey nani are the experts talking about. What does this have to do with us? Why should we care? I don't really have time for this. Used to be my mantra, right? But the truth of the matter is, if these terms can save you time and money and energy and get you progress faster, then they're useful, right? And that is the intent of us doing Jargon of the Day, because we know that it's just so overwhelming. Oh my gosh. And you don't want to be overwhelmed. So I loved that. Speaking of my crazy hair, somebody wrote to me over the weekend and said, when I was in school, in grad school, our professor made us write little mini reports on all your jargon of the day. And we know that a lot of universities use the jargon of the day to help explain to beginning students what it's like as a parent, how we don't get these terms, right? Which is, if nothing else in life, I'm so glad that there are a group of experts who understand that we don't understand their jargon. Like, I've fulfilled my purpose on this planet. But he made a point of telling me that all the students would write these up, but their favorite part was seeing what my crazy hair looked like over the different days. I was like, I'll take that. I do have crazy hair. It's just one of those things that I have to live with. So there you go. So it's crazy today. It's crazy. It's much shorter. I don't know if you can see, I'm just buzzing more and more of it off. Okay. Now let's get to the important thing. The jargon today is mastery. Now, this is one of those words that's very deceiving, right? Because we all go, well, I know what mastery means. I don't need you to define that for me, Shannon, except that where it applies to autism, it's a little bit different than what we would think, because it's a very specific thing, like all things in psychology, right? So let's go ahead and look at the actual definition, see if we can poke a little fun at it, and then we'll look at the working definition. So the actual definition of mastery is the point at which the child is said to have successfully acquired the target behavior determined by previously established criteria. See, they were doing okay, and then they just had to let the whole thing go to hell in a handbasket, right? Because I'm like, the point at which the child has acquired the target behavior. I can sort of figure out what that means, but then determined by a previously established criteria, and you've lost me, right? So let's take a look at our working definition and see if we can't make sense of this. And I got to tell you, this is really deceptive, because you go, it's just so easy, right? But stay with me. So the working definition is when the child has independently demonstrated the desired skill at the desired level. Okay. So great. This is what we want, right? We want the child to learn something, and we want them to be able to do it at a certain level, right? But who decides that? Who decided, first of all, who decided what the skill was? And then how do we know that they have it? Because I know as a former teacher that sometimes you teach something to somebody and then you find out, they didn't really learn that. I got to go back and reteach it, right? And if what we're trying to do is teach someone important life skills, we want to know that they learned it properly. So, it's an old teacher trick that before you start to teach something, you decide, how will I know whether they've learned it? You set parameters and you go, all right, I want to, I used to teach, for a while I taught ninth grade English. and I was going to teach Romeo and Juliet. So before I started teaching Romeo and Juliet, there's a lot there, right? To teach it. But, so I had to decide, I'm teaching it to ninth graders. What are the concepts that I want them to get, and how will they be able to demonstrate that they got the concepts of Romeo and Juliet? So I don't just charge in blindly and go, I hope they got it, right? I hope they're able to do it. I gotta have an idea of where I'm trying to get to. So, and that's true with anything. So if we're trying to teach a child how to, say please and thank you, right? We want to, we say, okay, here's the targeted skill. We want them to say please and thank you in the appropriate times, because you don't want just running around saying please, please, and thank you, right? You want them to say at the appropriate time. So how would we decide that that was the case? Like, what would be the established criteria? And in the field of ABA, a lot of times, to have a starting point, they'll say, okay, well, I want the child to be able to get this right how many times out of 10? Do I want them, and it's going to be different for each child. So for some children, we would say, I want them to get it right 5 times out of 10. That's a reasonable amount of time to be able to appropriately say please and thank you. For other kids, we're going to say we want it 8 out of 10. And for some kids, we might say 9 out of 10, right? Depending on, how important it is to that family and to that individual and what they're doing in their life and what the skill is, right? Because for instance, if I'm going to teach them to appropriately cross the street safely, 5 times out of 10 is not going to work, and nor is 8 or 9. They got to get it 100% of the time, right? So first of all, we say, I think that this is the appropriate criteria, that that they're going to do it 8 out of 10 times, for instance, that they're able to do it. But because we know that sometimes our kids are tricky and they have different ways of doing things, like there's the kiddo who never gets it right on the first try because they're learning in the lesson and they have a short-term memory deficit. So they never get it right on the first try. But then once they are reprompted, they get it and they get the rest of them right. So they're getting 9 out of 10, but they've always get the first one wrong. So that's not really them having learned it. They haven't really mastered it. It's just that they can learn it again in the moment and have their memory refreshed. So we might add other things onto it. Say they have to get 8 out of 10 right, and they must get it right on the first trial. So it's very individualized. But this is the thing. So often, so much is happening in a moment, and we're teaching so many different things. And sometimes our kids get left behind when we teach way too many things in a moment. So it's really important that when we're teaching something, especially to young learners or someone who's struggling, you could be 35 years old and you're trying to learn a concept that's important to you and you're struggling. It's really important to slow down and go, okay, what am I teaching here? Because everything else I'm not going to worry about right now. Everything else we can worry about in a different moment, maybe even on a different day. So mastery really helps you to get very specific and go, here's what I'm teaching. Here's what it's going to look like when we're there. And I can put specific things in so that I know that I've taught it well. And good ABA providers will always set a mastery criteria before teaching a lesson, always. And then they don't necessarily cling to it like a crazy person, right? Because they'll begin to teach and they know what the learner is doing. And if, for instance, they see, oh, they're not getting it right on the first try, then we shift techniques and we change the mastery criteria. It's not about the mastery criteria driving the bus, but it's having a place to start and then noticing, is that helping us to get where we want to go? I always love to give the analogy about, when a plane takes off from Los Angeles to go to New York, that over 50% of the time it's off course. But the pilot keeps checking to go, okay, I gotta go this way, I gotta go that way. And they arrive in New York, but they kept checking to see where they're going. So mastery helps us to set a criteria and say, okay, this is the path we're taking. Oh, look, we got off there. Okay, we're going to adjust the mastery criteria so that we get to the final place, which is that the individual, not necessarily a child, the individual has a basic understanding of this and is able to do this in different settings with different people in different circumstances. So that's mastery. We are welcoming back to the show Lillian Carrier. She plays Drea on Everything's Gonna Be Okay. And she's an amazing actress, and we're so thrilled. I think that we're welcoming her right now to come into the show. Lillian, are you there? She was in the waiting room. Let's see if they're able to connect her in so that that she can be here with us. She's there. Lillian, good morning. Can you hear me? Hi, Lillian. How are you?
I'm good.
It's so good to see you. Are you stuck in the rain too?
Raining right now, but it is very gloomy. It looks like it could rain any minute, and it was
Okay.
raining a little bit ago.
Okay, we're getting downpour here, and you may even hear some of it on because I'm in a part of my house where it's really loud on the roof, and normally I love that, but for a broadcast, it maybe isn't the best thing. So Lillian, welcome back to the show, and we're so excited because since the last time you were on the show, the season finale of Everything's Gonna Be Okay aired, and you had another role on a hit show that you did. Tell us about that.
Okay, so I made an appearance on NCIS New Orleans in the role of Rachel Kinnaman. It was really cool. So she is on the spectrum herself, another autistic character, super cool. And the beginning of the episode opened with her father hanging out eating breakfast, and all of a sudden there's gunfire and chaos, and you don't know if her father is dead or alive, and she's on the run, and it's all crazy.
And so what was that like for you as an actress? Was that super fun? Was that was hard?
It was new. But it was really fun. I really enjoyed it. Definitely a new challenge, but everyone on set was amazing. They all made me feel very comfortable. And the amazing thing about the set was all already had experience with autism, and because in my experience, when I had experience with it, they don't know if you're capable, ask you, and like there's always I don't know if they can do this, but they have a PA on their show. It's absolutely everyone's favorite person, and he is on the spectrum himself, and his name is Desmond, and he's just the coolest person ever. So when I showed up, they were like, yeah, like she got cast in the role, she can do it, there's no question, which was amazing to experience.
I love that, because I don't know that everybody realizes what a difference it is. I know at one point in my life, I wasn't aware of individuals on the autism spectrum. And then the more I met people on the spectrum, the more comfortable I was. And now it seems shocking to me that people have this thought, wondering if somebody on the spectrum is capable of fill in the blank, right? Because I know so many people on the spectrum, and I know it's different for all people. But for you to be on a set where people have already had that experience, where it's already been demystified, it had to have been just that much more fun for you to be there, because you didn't have to go over that hurdle.
Mm-hmm.
Is that pretty much it?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And it was really cool having him on there, as he took really good care of me and was able to like really understand me and go, predict what I need and stuff, because he's been in my position. I mean, not the same exact one. Very helpful.
We're talking a little bit in the chat, and I'm gonna go ahead and, because we were talking about later on having your sister join us.
Yes.
On the show, and we very much I misunderstood and thought you guys were in the same location. I don't know why it didn't occur to me that you're probably sheltering in different places. So if you want to take a second, and not where anybody else can see, but in the chat here, if you would give the email address to our producer, he will email the link to your sister so that she can get on with us. Oh, she's already there. He's already taken care of it. Traven is so on top of it. So wonderful. We'll have her join in just a few minutes. So I wanted to go back and talk a little bit about Everything's Going to Be Okay. Because this show, Lillian, this show, it has turned into like our favorite thing. But I don't know if you heard me say that, Traven loves it too, but we watch it and we watch like this. Do you find people saying that I watch and I go, I can't look. Oh my gosh, over and over and over. It's just so shocking, but it's so hilarious. Do you have other viewers that are telling you that they find themselves like having to like cover their faces and cover their eyes because they're like, oh my gosh, that's happening? Or am I the only person?
I feel it's more the parent side because
are you saying we're funny daddies?
Thinking of your children in that situation is very different than thinking of yourself in that situation, right?
I'm sure you're right. I suddenly feel very
old. Individuals on the spectrum has been like, I can't believe that you're doing this. Like, it's showing we're capable of these things. It's like, I'm just really happy that it's out there and we're, you're not handling us with kid gloves and we're not just the comic relief. Like, we are characters, we have stories, and we have capabilities to handle those stories.
Yeah, and the stories are varied and different, and there's a lot of discussion about sex on the show. That's one of the things that I find myself going, oh my gosh. But it is by no means the only thing. It seems like everything is on the table, and the things that the teenagers say to each other. Even there was the one scene when you guys are all there, and the mother from Australia is on the big screen and having a conversation with you guys. And I had to pick myself up off the floor because I kept falling off the sofa. I was laughing and screaming and jumping up and down and going, oh my goodness. Right. I mean, it's hard to watch and not, it feels like an interactive experience that, you find yourself going, oh no, or I can't believe they just said that. It's like my favorite guilty pleasure right now. So it is available. The show is for Freeform, and it's on Freeform, but it's also available. The whole of season 1 is available on Hulu. Please tell me that you guys have been picked up for season 2.
We haven't been informed yet. We're still waiting.
Oh my gosh. No, I'm sorry. That's unacceptable. Who do I have to call? You can't leave me here.
I know, we're all just like sitting here going, tell us.
No, did you hear me say at the beginning? I want to be in that house right now to see how they're dealing with seclusion. I want to see how your character is dealing with your relationship, long distance, and not being able to be there. I want to see this. I can't stand it. I find myself thinking about it. This is crazy. So we have to, hey, Freeform, this is Shannon, come on already. Green light season 2. Now for people who aren't watching, tell them a little bit about Drea and what her deal is.
Okay, so Drea she's 17 in high school. She and Matilda are seniors. She comes in episode 2, and I think her entrance is absolutely like the best scene ever. It's a great introduction. She just says like whatever on her mind. There's no filter, and it's all quirky, crazy. And yeah, she is the person who comes in and goes, Matilda, whoa, what are you doing now? And she really has Matilda's back, and she's really her like close friend in this trio of friendship. And while Matilda goes off on her crazy adventures, she's just going, I just love her.
I just love, the thing I love about Drea is that she is the embodiment of that honesty. Yeah. That she says what she's thinking, even if it's, because so often people are like, well, I didn't want to tell the truth and hurt somebody's feelings. I think what's often people misunderstand that for folks on the spectrum, they're not looking to hurt anybody's feelings and they care about other people's feelings, but they're going to tell the truth because they feel it's the right thing to do. And I just love that Drea is so true to herself always. Even when somebody is trying to tell her, well, you need to be this way for me, she manages to stand up for herself and speak up for herself and say, that's not really me. This is what I'm comfortable with. I just find her such a delightful breath of fresh air. I don't want to spoil for people who haven't watched, but your character falls in love. Yes. We won't say with who, but it's fabulous. And there is a moment that is so divine to me where your character, says the big, I love you, and the way you express it as an actress and what happens. I'd love to know, like, how much of that was scripted and how much of that did you add? Like, it's when things are really good, like it's impossible, you don't think about it till afterwards, but I want to know, did Josh write it that way? How much input did you have? It's just one of the most delightful moments I've seen on television in my life.
Okay, so for the consulting, it's blurred how much I had input and how much was already in his head, because there was a lot of it, we had many conversations with each other where I never saw the script. It was just him asking questions, me giving feedback, me talking about what I wanted to see, and the things I didn't like about other shows. And like one of my main things I asked is, I want stimming to just be accepted. I want stimming to be beautiful. I want it to come out in very positive moments and not just negative moments. And so that's something that's seen throughout it. And then that I love you scene where those such intense moments come out. It was put in there, and it was so the chew necklace that Drea has, that was included because of me. I had a meeting with him and some of the other writers, and they asked questions about it, and then the next day I got the script and it was included in there. And then working in the service dog in that scene.
Is that Luke?
That day, we were discussing, like, it was just stimming, and then he's like, we don't have a lot of you actually using Duke in the series. Let's just put it in this scene and see if it works. If not, we'll cut it. And then it ended up just flowing so beautifully, having all of those aspects together. But yeah, most of it was written in the script at the table read.
And for people who don't know, the service dog that's on the show is your actual service dog. Is that him that we're hearing right there? That we heard.
That's actually my mom's dog.
Oh, it's not even. But is Luke there with you?
Yeah, Luke is here with me. He's just over here.
Okay,
Luke,
well,
let's see if we can get him on screen. I don't know if we can.
Hey, Luke. He was in our studio just like a month ago. There he is. Hello, Luke. You're so beautiful. And he is so good-mannered. He is just a charmer, he is. But he's on the show playing the role of, his name is Luke, but he's on the show playing Duke. And he is delightful on the show as well. We're just thrilled to see him there. Now, you had done a little bit of acting before this, is that correct?
I've done theater in like high school years back, but nothing like this. This was my first thing. Yeah.
Was it your intention? Did you ever say to somebody, look, I want to be a working actress? Was that what your goal was? Or you literally
it was never a plan of mine. I mean, I always thought it might be a cool thing to do, but it was never initiated as a plan. It was never like a big dream of mine. I just enjoyed learning and hanging out with my friends during it, and I had fun doing it in high school. But no, my plan was either to go into some sort of biology field, and then I ended up in school going for a teacher's certificate to hopefully work in like elementary school, preschool, and then maybe work my way up to eventually be a biology teacher. But like school is really hard for me. So I didn't know if I could make it to that level. And yeah, I was in college at the time. I was taking one class for my teaching degree, and the audition came up for Matilda, and I went for it. So I was like, why not?
And ended up with the role of Drea. But so now has this all changed for you? Now is it your intention to be an actress for the rest of your life? Or what do you think?
I'm gonna ride this ride as long as I can. I don't know if this will be the rest of my life, but it's definitely something I'm pursuing. I have an agent and a manager now, and I'm learning about the industry and how to audition and do all that. And I've gone on a couple, and so I got NCIS. And yeah, hopefully this continues. But in the meantime, I do autism most days and then audition whenever I get a chance.
Well, great segue. Let's talk a little bit about autism, and you tell me when you want your sister to come in.
Yeah, that's going to be part of the conversation about
okay, so Chloe, Traven, can we have Chloe join us? And maybe, if you wouldn't mind, Lillian, would you introduce your sister to us?
Okay, so I have a twin sister. Her name is Chloe. Together, along with my mom, we founded a nonprofit called Autism that supports adults on the spectrum. Hello, Chloe.
Hi, Chloe. I sort of met you a couple of weeks ago at the tweet event, but I don't think I actually I don't think we had a big long conversation, and I didn't realize is that your dog that was there that night?
Yeah.
And what is your dog's name?
Benji.
Benji. I had a longer conversation with Benji, but so thrilled that you're here. And Chloe, am I right that you also work as your sister's assistant on set? Is that true?
Yeah, well, actually, I was Luke's assistant.
I love that Luke has an assistant. I absolutely love that. So what kinds of things were you doing on set?
So I was making sure that Luke was taken care of, that he ate his meals at the right time, that he went to the bathroom when every few hours. So he has a pretty regular schedule. So I would make sure that all that was taken care of, so that Lillian didn't have to worry about that. She could just focus on her job. And then she didn't have to stop everything if Luke was in a scene and be like, hey, we all need to stop so my dog could do something. So I did that so she didn't feel like she was getting in trouble. And so yeah, and then I also would, if she needed food or anything, I would run and grab her food. So what I like to do is she had her favorite breakfast kind of stuff. So I would grab her favorite donut if they had donuts out, and I would and she would go straight to hair and makeup, and I would bring food to that trailer, and I would put food in her dressing room and water and stuff so that she had whatever she needed wherever she went, so that she didn't have to worry about all that kind of stuff while she was memorizing lines and running around doing whatever she needed to do.
And as I recall, when you were on the show before, Lillian, you said that this was really essential for you, that you could not have been free to do what you did on the show had your sister not been helping you. But I can't imagine, you're both young, talented women, and, to see your sister, it's wonderful seeing your sister getting to shine like that.
Yeah.
But to be her assistant, and sometimes when it's all about her and you're the person to get the water, was it ever, did you guys ever have disagreements about it? Did you ever feel like you were on the back burner, or were you just okay with it, Chloe?
No, I was so happy for her. Honestly, I was just happy to be there because I love film, and I just was grateful to be on set when I really didn't have much of a reason to be there besides supporting her. And I've seen her for years,
She's been acting since I can remember, like since she could talk, like she was on stage, maybe even before that. And she never got a huge part. And I was always like, oh my God, she's beyond talented. Like she could be getting Academy Awards. She's like at this higher level. And like, I'm like, am I going crazy? Because no one else saw this. And then she auditions and gets a part written for her on a show. And I'm like, okay, someone else at least sees this talent, you know? And so I was like so happy for her, and seeing her validated in the way like everyone was validating her on this set that like I've never seen before. It was just incredible to see that.
Well, I gotta say, what a remarkable sister you are. And Lillian, how lucky are you for both of you, how lucky are both of you to have each other? What a wonderful thing. I'm impressed that two sisters could be so wonderful. I gotta say, it just from like meeting the members of the cast that I have, it seems like it's probably a very fun set to be on. Is that true from both of you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's very goofy, silly. We all have a great time. I think Kayla is the most serious one on set, that she's very particular, and like we all respect that she's, you know, got to be focused, got to do things in her way. But for the most part, it's a very goofy, fun set, and we're all messing around and having a great time.
Well, and Josh Thomas, I mean, how brilliant and talented is he? You know, if we're seeing just a sliver of what goes on in his head, he's got to be one of the funniest people I've ever seen. Is he very focused on the set too, or is he just hilarious fun?
So he wears every hat. So he, you know, producer, writer, star. He is just chaotic, running everywhere, trying to do everything at the same time. So while he does have his goofy silliness, he's very much just everywhere all the time. And you're like, but yes, he keeps it fun.
I remember my first day on set, he was running literally around the entire set. So I was watching Lillian do one of the scenes in the classroom, and Josh came running by in heels, and then came running by a second time like 5 minutes later in tennis shoes. And I was like, why did he change his shoes? What's going on? I found out later that the heels was something he was going to wear on the show that he needed to break in.
Yeah.
I think it was in the a scene where he danced. So he was literally running around set with the headset on, listening to the scene while breaking in his shoes. And he would run. The reason he was running past me was he was going to set to tell someone some note about the acting or directing.
I can't even imagine, because the show is so hilarious. I remember the scene where he was dancing in the heels. Too much fun. A couple of people have written in and said some things. Donna wants you to know that it's so cool to see stimming accepted, Lillian, because I know how important that was to you. And she says echolalia too. And then Heather says it's to both of you, it's incredible to see how much you've both grown as people since taking on this role. So truly wonderful. And Heather, thank you for writing that in. Probably somebody who must know you both. So tell us about Autism. We were going to talk about that.
So Chloe, is this somewhere you want to?
Well, Autism started because after high school, we couldn't really find any programs or services that were really working for us, and or that even existed. So we started just talking about like all the things that we wish existed. And I remember all these people in our town, when they would get a diagnosis, or their kid would get a diagnosis, we were the go-to people, like, what do we do now? And so we started to go like, why are we waiting for someone else to create this? Why don't we? And so we started, that's sort of how autism started, and we were pretty much doing it before we made it an official company. And so some of the things I wanted was like just someone older or further along in their autism journey that I could talk to about the things I was going to. So we started mentorships. We started a life map program where you meet with someone who helps you break down your goals into manageable achievements once a week. We started support groups and social activities. You know, just all
Sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Where can people go to find out more information?
Autism.com.
Okay. And then is it just, can people only participate in your community, or is it something people can participate with from a distance?
Well, right now it's worldwide because everything's online right now. We're not doing anything in person, but we do in-house as well normally. But right now, and also everything all the way through May, I believe, is free right now. If you wanted to try out any of our services for the next month or two and see if you like it.
Okay, cool. You know, we didn't really talk about this in the beginning because I sort of feel like it, you know, I don't know whether it's anecdotal or not, but you know, I had the opportunity to talk to Lillian before on the show, but not with you, Chloe. So people are asking questions on, you know, in the chat and online and on our live feature about. So Lillian, I always hate to ask people to disclose what their diagnosis is, and I'm not going to ask you guys, but if you choose to, I guess I could say that if you choose to talk about how you identify yourself. They're asking how you guys each identify yourselves.
Oh, so we're very open about this, that autistic, 100% autistic, diagnosed at the age of 16.
Yeah, we were diagnosed at the same time. So,
and are you the only two kids in your family, or do you have brothers and sisters?
We have another sister.
Okay, and you know, obviously we're not going to ask her, she's not here to identify herself, but I would imagine that how you are, even though you're twins and you both have this diagnosis, I would imagine that you are still very much your very own people, and that you have very different issues and needs and concerns. Is that true, or are there things that you guys have very much in common?
Yeah, we're very, very different people.
We're almost
very, very different needs.
Are you willing to talk about that a little bit? Like what are the things that are particularly of interest to you, Lillian? What are the things that you struggle with, maybe?
Yeah. So I love rules and logic and everything fitting in their perfect box. And when it doesn't, like, my mind breaks down and I have like huge trouble comprehending, and all I want to do is solve it. And usually when that case happens, if there are gray areas in life, there isn't a solution, and that just, I can't handle that. That's a huge problem. Where Chloe seems to just live in the gray area a lot of times.
Is that true, Chloe?
Yeah,
Interesting.
I'm cool with not having answers to everything. I think it's even kind of cool to like that.
So I gotta say, in this
possibilities,
this COVID isolation, which is driving a lot of people bonkers because we want answers and people want to know, when is it going to end? How are you both coping with this?
I think for the most part, I'm doing pretty well. I have a friend staying with me who normally lives alone, so she has to come stay with me during this time, and she's keeping me sane. But recently, I've just gotten used to hanging out with friends, which is a very new thing for me, and I miss that. And so this is a new feeling I'm dealing with.
Have you tried hanging out like in this format on a Zoom chat?
Yeah, I I don't like it so much.
It's weird. It's
Yeah.
there's like a lag, and I always feel like I'm interrupting people, but it's better than nothing,
Yeah.
but it's not the same.
Right.
Not the same. And Lillian, how about for you?
I've been doing pretty well. I've been just mostly doing work, been very busy, so I haven't had much time to think about it. I know at the beginning I dove in and did like tons of research on it, but now I just feel like that just drives me crazy and it's not a good idea to do that. So like I stay away from like the news and information, and I'm just like, is it over yet? Just tell me that. I don't need to know anything else.
I think a lot of us are that way, but I'm curious, what kind of work are you doing? Is it schoolwork?
No, I'm not in school right now. Because I have a job and hopefully the acting continues, so the teaching, I might go back to that eventually, I don't know. But it's autism, so it was a lot of the things converting it to online was me doing lots of research on what programs are out there and figuring out how to make it work.
It's what everybody's doing right now.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm reading what somebody is saying. Somebody says, thank you for sharing gray. How about light blue or Chloe's own rainbow? Instead of saying that she's hanging out in the gray, that she's hanging out in her own rainbow. I like that. Okay. Okay, they're asking about twin. It seems so hard to find programs for adults in general. I struggle to find support in adult medical care, both for my autism and the set of birth defects I was born with. The part of that is both conditions are studied a lot in kids, even though they are lifelong conditions. So, but the part about, finding programs for adults in general, that's part of what you guys are solving with Autism, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what kinds of things are available right now through Autism in this COVID isolation?
So we have a life map program, which is an individualized coaching, where the client has some sort of goal, whatever it is, and we help them plan and figure out how to meet that said goal with whatever executive functioning they need help with.
And again, they would go to ourtism.com if they want to do that. And is it you guys doing the coaching, or is it somebody else?
The two of us don't do coaching. We do have someone on the spectrum that does coaching, as well as a couple of people off the spectrum. And it would be based on like your needs and your wants and who you want to work with. Wonderful. And then there's mentorship, which is less formal and could be more emotion-based. And it's you match with someone who's a little above you and has been through what you've been through. So if you're in high school, you can match with someone just out of high school and talk about what you're going through. And the mentor will be someone who's experienced what you've experienced and can help you through whatever situation that is. If it's you're looking for a job, as someone who just got a job. We're hoping to get more people involved in that. But
I love that.
It seems like
I love that.
It was something I really wanted growing up, because it felt like everyone I met was lower because I was in programs that were that way. And then someone who's above me was usually neurotypical. And I wanted someone who's like just right at that level that could explain to me. Like,
what a very helpful thing.
You know?
I love it. And again, people can go to ourtism, ourtism.com. Chad writes in and says, I think the dogs are having the hardest time. Do you think that's true? Are the dogs having a harder time than you guys?
Yeah. As service dogs, they're used to being out in the world like everyone else. So they're just so antsy and really want to be working again.
Are you guys able, where you live, to take them for walks and be safe? Yeah.
A little bit, but right now there's just a lot of people walking.
Yeah.
Around our street seems to be a main street because the trail's closed, so they use our street as the trail.
Yeah, I have a big dog that's a rescue dog, and she needs exercise. She needs to be walked. And in the beginning, it was great because nobody was out on the streets, but now it's like, it's crazy how many people are out, and she's not good with that. She loses her mind. She turns into Cujo. They also wanted me to say to you that they said, love you both, really beautiful. You guys are really beautiful, and you are. Unbelievably, we've finished the hour, and it's such a bummer, but I hope that people will visit Autism, OURTISM.com, and see all the things that you guys have that are available and participate with you. What's that, Lillian?
We have a lot of things out there, so please look us up. There's probably something for you.
And definitely go and check out the entire first season of Everything's Gonna Be Okay. And we need to start a letter writing campaign or something. I know that everything is a little in flux right now, but we are going to return to doing production, and we need to see season 2 of Everything's Gonna Be Okay. I can't live without it, so we're not allowing that to happen. It's, they have to do it. I don't care who I have to call. If I have to go lay in the road with a mask on my face, but they need to do a season 2. I need this. We all do. And for those of you who haven't watched it, you need to go watch it to see why. And what is the name of the episode on NCIS? So if they missed it, they can go and watch it on demand. Lillian.
Relentless, episode 15, I believe.
All right. I'm very squeamish and have a hard time watching those shows, but I'm going to pledge to you that I'm going to go watch your episode. But NCIS tends to give me nightmares. Like I'm one of those.
It's more emotion based. It's okay. It's a cute story.
All right, I'm gonna go watch it. So ladies, I thank you so much for being here with us, and we're gonna look forward to hearing more. And Chloe, thank you so much for joining us. All right, thanks, and give my love to the dogs too. All right, thank you guys. I'm just going to finish out the show here, you guys, and say that we are back here at 2 p.m. Pacific time featuring heroes during this COVID emergency. Don't forget to be here with us. I'm going to be live with Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. It's a very special week. We're just doubling up our shows. If you're a card parent, don't forget to open your email because we're sending you emails about the live webinars that we are doing because we're doubling those up today too. On tomorrow's show, so excited. We're having Matt Asner and Nava Paskowitz Asner. They're going to be talking with us about the Ed Asner Family Center and some of the online things that they have going on that are wonderful resources as well. On Wednesday, it's Ask Dr. Doreen. On Thursday, we're going to have Bonnie Yates with us pretty much for the whole hour, giving you the 411 about what you need to know in this emergency about your upcoming IEP meeting or what's happening with your child while they're doing long distance learning at home. And then on Friday, we've got a very special show. Many of you have written in and said that you have questions about eating and food while we're in this emergency. And it's a great time. I know I know immediately people are going to be like, what are you talking about? It's so hard to get groceries. But the truth of the matter is that some of the things we're going to be talking about are more readily available, to be honest. And now more than ever, keeping our kids healthy and eating good, healthy food that's well-sourced is super important, right? We all need to be taking care of our core health. So on Friday, Julie Matthews, she is the person. She is the founder of Nourishing Hope. She's been working in this field longer than anybody else, and she is the expert that I can bring you about diet for our kiddos and teens and adults ecosystems, and really for us as well. So Julie Matthews is going to be here. She's going to be, I'm told she's going to tell us the 3 things that we need to know in this COVID emergency to be keeping our kids on a healthy diet. So that's on Friday during Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. It's going to be a great week. I'll see you back here in just a couple of hours. Don't forget 2 p.m. Pacific time, so 5 p.m. Eastern time, back here with Heroes with Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.
The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and I've got my thing on the wrong view. There we go. We're coming to you live. I'm in my house and I've got Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh here with us and she's in her house. We're observing that social distancing, but still here with you, hopefully in your house, to bring you some really wonderful information and hope and inspiration, I hope. We are going to be with you live for the next hour. I should say that this is Welcome to Autism Live, the morning edition, because right now, for this week and this week only, we are doing a morning edition and we are doing an afternoon edition. And I got to tell you that the afternoon edition has been so inspirational to me. It's just knocking my socks off every afternoon. That is happening at 2 o'clock Pacific time, which is actually 5 p.m. Eastern time. And it's a wonderful edition that's with Dr. Granpeesheh every day. In the morning show, you only get Dr. Granpeesheh on Wednesdays, and it is Wednesday, so you're getting double fabulous today. But she's with me every afternoon at 2, and I'm going to let her tell you what we're doing then because it's really remarkable. Dr. Granpeesheh?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Shannon. Yeah, so our 2 o'clock show is very exciting because we are honoring our heroes at CARD, and we would love for all of our viewers to join us because truly it is one of our more, I guess, emotional shows because a lot of the folks who come on the show and we get a chance to interview them and talk to them a little bit about how they're experiencing this period of time in our lives and how they're coping and how they're continuing to help others. And so we are shining a light on these amazing heroes, and we'd love to share that with all of you. But Shannon, I also want to say that if there are CARD families joining us right now on our show right now, I am doing a kind of private Ask Dr. Doreen for just CARD families every day this week at noon. That's just because we have so many people asking questions and needing some guidance and advice that we ended up doing an extra show for everyone.
Yes, and if you are a CARD family, check your email because the code for that webinar, it's a private code and it's been emailed to you. So check your email and find that so that you can join us. Now, for the rest of the world, you're here on Wednesday, and it is the day when you get to do that as well, which is super fabulous for you. And Dr. Granpeesheh is here, as you can see. Usually, we hide her off camera for a couple of minutes. We're not hiding anything anymore. That's what COVID has done for us. Everything's out in the open. So she's here. She's going to be answering your questions. If you watch the show, there are lots of different ways that you can connect, lots of different ways that you can let us know your thoughts, your feelings, and your questions. Now, I have pages and pages of questions that we are still trying to answer from last week and earlier this week. And some that there was one in particular that was asked during our CARD Hero segment yesterday in the afternoon version of Autism Live. And I promised them that we would hit that first this morning, and I want to honor that promise. But for all of you, please write in. I take preference over live questions and try to answer as many as possible. Please, though, be patient. I'm trying to, go back and answer as many as I can online. But we are, we're behind, and I'm just going to be honest about that. But the question that we had live yesterday during the afternoon show was, it's really hard to cope with this quarantine COVID-19. And they refer to their son is keeping us on our feet. It's a big challenge. having to look after my 8-year-old son. He's extremely hyper, not aware of danger. Today, he went out of the garden with his scooter to the main road, had a lucky escape. Is there a medication to keep my little boy calm, less hyper? And they want you to know, Dr. Granpeesheh, he's nonverbal, and they're thinking about getting a GPS tracker. And of course, we're fans of the big tracker, but the preference is to not have to get to the point where we're looking for them with the tracker, right, Dr. Granpeesheh?
Yeah, absolutely, of course. And so there are a few things you can do, but the tracker is also a good idea also because it will give you a little bit of peace of mind. And right now we all need just as much peace of mind as we can get. So there's many things. One is, the first thing I would do, honestly, is I would put up some sort of barrier. So if there's no fencing or if there is access where he can get out, please deal with that first. Safety is always the primary area of focus. And I would really, really urge you to make sure that the backyard or wherever he is running around, just like we do with our infants when they're born, we go ahead and make the house safe. That's my first thing, is please do whatever you can to put a barrier up so that he is not able to run away. The second thing is, yes, there are medications, obviously, that you can have your psychiatrist. You can start with your pediatrician, maybe have a conversation. This is a good time, actually, to have that conversation, because a lot of these evaluations can be done with you answering a questionnaire to identify if he has symptoms of attention deficit hyperactivity. And if he does have some of those hyperactive symptoms and they're unmanageable right now, it might be the right time to try some medications that will help calm him. All that aside, and the GPS tracker, as I said, is a good idea to give you some peace of mind. But all that aside, from a behavioral perspective, there's a lot of stuff you can do. And it's very difficult, I think, for parents. Like, I don't want to be unfair and just say, you're going to do the following things to deal with it, because yes, there's a million other things you're dealing with right now as well. So what I would suggest, whatever is feasible for you. Let's start with that. A lot of payers right now have given funding for in-home telehealth, in-home therapy, as well as for telehealth therapy. And I would really recommend, if you do have an ABA provider, that you contact them, ask them if they have funding for you to do this, and work with your BCBA as well as your BTs, your behavior technicians, to handle this situation. Elopement is a very big and important issue, and pretty much everyone will fund it. So that's that. If you don't, then I would recommend that if you're just on your own right now, I would recommend the first thing you should do is set up some sort of routine for your child that and make sure that a lot of the activities are physical activities in the routine that will literally exhaust him. That's pretty much all you can do right now. So if there's an opportunity, if there's a trampoline in the house, maybe that's part of the routine. If there isn't, maybe jumping on a bed is part of the routine. Actually, like just doing calisthenics. If you can set up an obstacle course in the background, anything, jumping rope, kicking a ball back and forth, whatever you can do that is a routine that he gets into, it'll be helpful. And during that time, if it's possible for you, if someone's watching him and it's possible for you, I just want to recommend that you start using that time to learn some of the behavioral techniques that will help you in the long run. And of course, those are available to all of our viewers on, excuse me, on IBT's website, Institute for Behavioral Training. Did you want to ask?
A great point. And I want to say, the folks at IBT asked me to be telling all of you every day, there is a free training every single day of the week that they are posting on their site, ibehavioraltraining.com, just for parents, during this emergency that are tailored just towards the kinds of things that are coming up because you're in a stay-at-home situation. So those are there for you. Those are free. There are additional trainings that you can pay for that are very affordable. You know, I think they start at $7.50, so it's cheaper than even buying a softcover book. And it's videos by top-notch people that help you to learn things. And I also want to point out that on their website, they have 3 different sets of videos. They have, and basically it's teaching all of the same things, but at different levels. And it really is a measure of how much jargon you can handle. So what I love about it though, is that you can start with the parent videos. And if you find, okay, but I want to know more about that, you can learn more about it. You can go to the professional and take the same videos that professionals do to train themselves. And in between, there's the teacher ones that deal just with things in the classroom, which may be of help to you right now, as so many of you are having to be teacher and OT and whatever. And side note, when Dr. Granpeesheh started answering this question and she talked about shoring things up so that, you know, that they can't get out with any ease, I just want to remind everybody that hardware stores are delivering, that they are considered one of the essential businesses. If there are locks and alarms that you need to install, most hardware stores are delivering right now. You don't even have to leave your home. You can go online, you can order things. Please, let's be safe. It is the time of year where normally we are talking about this all the time on Autism Live. And, you know, I hate scaring people and I hate being negative, but let's be honest. The number 1 cause of death for individuals on the autism spectrum is drowning due to elopement. And the number 2 is being hit by a car due to elopement. And let's not have that be our stories. Take every precaution that you can, shore that place up, learn what you can, because we want everybody to be as safe as possible. Okay, and I wanted to bring up, we had somebody write in, and it's not even a question, but it was a comment, and it's a heartbreaking comment. And of course, my computer hates me right now. It's because I have 17 windows open. All right. But a nurse wrote this in to us last week, and I wanted to put it out there and have Dr. Granpeesheh comment, because of course we're also deeply grateful for first responders. And, you know, we are taking an hour every day to talk about how grateful we are for the people who are still working with our kiddos. And this is a nurse. I don't want to leave her out. She says, I'm so overwhelmed. I'm a nurse. I work 2 nights a week. I have an almost 5-year-old with autism. I'm doing his ABA program with the help of his BCBA. I'm also doing his speech and OT. I'm also helping my 12-year-old neurotypical with e-learning. I just want to cry. I won't quit, but I'm struggling so much right now. And I just wanted to shout into the void, and I don't even know if she's watching today, but to say, you know, you're a hero. And, you know, when we all think about all the things that we have going on, and then to be a nurse on top of that and be leaving your home 2 nights a week to be able to take care of other people, you're a remarkable human being. I know for me, and I'm going to let Dr. Granpeesheh comment. I've been racking my brain, like, what can I do to help you? And let me just say this, you know, please write to me if I can, you know, 1 hour a day, help out with doing something with your 12-year-old. I'm not the best tutor, but there are some, I'm an ex-teacher. There are some things. If you want me to be hanging with your 12-year-old for a little while every day, I will do that for you. So write to me if you're watching, and just putting it out into the universe. Bless this woman and all that she's going through. Dr. Granpeesheh?
I'll just add to that, Shannon. I guess I'll just say, you know, sometimes and it sounds to me, excuse me, I think I'm losing my voice from doing so many meetings.
Yes.
Sometimes we just are doers, right? I mean, you are, I am, Shannon, and it sounds like this parent is as well. And we end up doing so much that we just forget. I guess it's not one of our habits to ask for help. And so what I would recommend is, if you have friends or anyone else that you can lean on right now, it's a very tough time, because I know nobody wants to like enter the home, or, you know, and God willing, we're about to hit the peak and then we'll start going, things will become easier again. But if you do have anyone that you could ask for help, ask for help. there's no weakness in asking for help. Honestly, given your circumstances, anyone would need some support and help. And so I'm also very sorry that we're not able to help you. I wish there was something we could do. I guess the only thing I can tell you is that I read a lot of scientific projections about what's going on with COVID-19, and there's a lot of hospital research that it has indicated that this is very much like a normal curve, and we're about to hit the peak of it early next week. And if we hit the peak of it early next week, or like around somewhere between the 11th to the 15th of April, then hopefully if all of those are accurate, things will start getting better after that. So that I'm holding on to that, and I'm holding on to just the hope that life will start to get easier again in the middle of May. So I just want to give you that hope as well, and hope that you're able to cope through it.
Thank you so much. And I also, a comment that we had gotten the other day that we hadn't had a chance to get to, but I see that person is watching right now. They wanted to know, does anyone know a way for a teenager who has not been evaluated yet to still be evaluated for autism if their state is under a stay-at-home order? Is there a way right now to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I were to evaluate a teenager right now, I would do an interview with you, the parent, and I would send you a series of assessments that are questionnaires. And then I would want to see the adolescent on camera. If they are verbal, I'd want to talk to them. Otherwise, I would ask you as the parent to try to interact so that I could see some things. But certainly it's possible to do an evaluation right now. We at CARD have actually, unbelievably, we have just as many admissions occurring right now as we did before the virus, which is incredible. And our admissions involves all of the above. It involves assessment, evaluation, observation, questionnaires, all kinds of stuff.
Wonderful. I just want to take a second to acknowledge the people that are have written in, who are watching. And I was saying before we came on the air that today is my dad's birthday. He would have been 83 years old. And early on in my dad's career, he was in the field of television. He was a sound person early on. And in Boston, one of his first jobs after leaving the military was he was the sound engineer for Romper Room. And on Romper Room, there's a point when the woman says, "Mr. Music, please." And my dad was Mr. Music, so, which was super fun. But there was a point in Romper Room where she would hold up a little mirror and she would say, "I see Bobby and I see Joey." So in honor of my dad in Romper Room, I'm just going to say, "I see Raven and I see Christina and I see Critter Kid and I see My Non-Traditional Life and I see Jeremy." And if you guys want me to acknowledge you, write in right now and I'll say your first name or whatever, like Romper Room, which is extra fun for me. Okay, question that we have coming in. Do you have any advice for a 2-year-old that was eating good, but in the last few months, he's really become very picky? He's a sensory kid, according to his OT. And I imagine that with all of this COVID stuff, if a kid was picky before, it's going to be that much harder when you're having issues ordering groceries.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't even thought about the fact that groceries are probably a little bit more restricted. I don't know, I can't tell from the question whether or not the pickiness has increased just as kind of in correlation to COVID, but it is very common for our kids to gradually become more picky. And it's funny, Shannon, because we were just talking about this yesterday, I think, the whole concept of food selectivity and how it develops in kids. So maybe I'll talk about that for a minute real quickly. With us, as when we go out and eat something that bothers us in some way or another, like let's say it causes gastrointestinal inflammation or something, we tend to think about the ingredients of the food that we ate and what ingredient would have caused me to have whatever, bloating or pain or whatever it is. And then we try to avoid that ingredient going forward, right? With children, so like, for instance, I could say, oh, I've come to realize that every time I eat something that has peanuts in it, I react really badly. Maybe I'm allergic to peanuts, that kind of thing. But with children, they don't have the ability to identify the ingredients. All they can identify is the color or the smell or the crunchiness, softness, the texture. And so they start to overgeneralize based on that. So for instance, with your child, what's happening is that possibly he had some other food that was mushy. And I'm guessing, because a lot of our kids just want crunchy foods, but it could also be that your child just wants mushy foods, which is a different issue, by the way. And maybe you can write in and tell us about that. But it is an overgeneralization of something that caused them some dislike or some other problem at some previous point. I would take it very much to mean, first of all.
And she said, by the way, she says mushy, that they only like mushy stuff.
Mushy food. Okay, great. I'm so glad that we're live and you could tell me that. Because when the issue is mushy, this actually becomes a really, really good red flag for you. So yes, on the one hand, I would want you to work on that, and you can work on that by requiring a small bite of something not mushy. Let's say it doesn't have to be crunchy, it just has to be chewy. And then giving multiple items that are mushy. In other words, you start with, let's say you have a bowl of oatmeal, okay, or something that the child likes, pudding, right? And you require the child to eat one piece of, let's say, bread or something that is not mushy, one piece, and then they can have the bowl of the mushy food, right? And then tomorrow they have to have 2 bites of the item that's not mushy, and then they will get the rest of the stuff, right? So you gradually increase the requirement of non-mushy foods that way. Now, and you reward the child significantly, massively. You throw a party when they have a bite of the non-mushy food. What's very important as you're doing this is a feeding program. What's really important though is, aside from all that, what's really important is that most of the time when our kids prefer mushy foods, this is an indication that their tongue is not moving around enough. They're not able to make chewing an action movement of the mouth, which actually is apraxia, and it will lead to language delay. So it is very important that you actually start doing some stuff that kind of mobilizes all of the inside of the mouth. And those types of things include getting your child a vibrating toothbrush so that they can put that in their mouth and activate everything that's in there. Doing a lot of exercises that help the child move their tongue around. Just think about when you're talking or eating, how many different ways your tongue moves, right? And our kids generally have a hard time with that. And so it would be very good if you could help do those exercises, like just sticking your tongue out, moving it up, down, to the side, left, right. You can use like a lollipop to try to guide the child, because their tongue will move to the lollipop. In fact, if you go on skills, I believe we have there's a section called oral motor exercises, and you should be doing a lot of those. That also will help.
Yeah. It's and skills. And by the way, somebody asked for the IBT, so I'm going to give you both of these at the same time. So the place where you got the trainings, Katie, you were, and by the way, I see Katie, you were asking about. So that's ibehavioraltraining.com, ibehavioraltraining.com. And maybe Traven, if you can type that in on Facebook, so that, or YouTube, wherever Katie has asked that, because I can't discern that from here, so that they can see it there. But ibehavioraltraining.com. Now skills is at skillsforautism.com, and you can go there, do a trial. But there's a whole section that's on motor skills, And in motor, there are oral motor skills and there are physical motor skills, right? Gross motor skill and fine motor skills. But there's also visual motor, which I find that a lot of our people are really excited to get to. So really good stuff. Okay, so hopefully we have addressed that. I've got questions every which way here, but I want to go to one that I think is everybody's dealing with right now, Dr. Grant-Boucher. I cannot seem to get my 10-year-old away from his iPad, his computer, and his phone. How do I try to take away so much dependency on technology, especially in this moment in time? Which I think is the question, right? For everybody.
So, I mean, I think what you need to do is, so there's, I guess I have two perspectives on this. One is, let's choose our battles right now. So if it was any other condition where, you know, right now we're 100% dependent, all of our communication, whether it's just social communication or it's academic or anything else, does require a computer or an iPad, right? And a phone. So it's sort of, it's a very difficult thing to cut that off or reduce it significantly during this time. If it was any other time, I would say, yes, you need to start restricting some of those things. But right now, you still can restrict them for sure. But I think you just, you limit them less than you would at any given other time. So I would first of all, not worry so much about it, because all behavior we can change behavior later as well. But I would just make sure that if he's on his iPad, computer, or phone, in between, there's physical exercise, which is very important. And that, like, you just have to mandate that. You basically have to say, if you want your iPad, I need you to go and, you know, run back and forth 20 times or whatever it is that you want him to do. Require some physical activity. Maybe require a small amount of other types of things, like maybe, you know, you can't have the iPad or computer when it's meal times. And I talk to a lot of parents, and right now is the best time for everyone to start, like, kind of going back to the traditional family type of environment where we all eat together and have eye contact and socialize and all those good things that we had lost due to all the crazy competition and activity and speed of life. Yeah. So, you know, but then again, when he's on his iPad, computer, and phone, I would just make sure that you're comfortable with what he's on. So that becomes a different issue. And it's kind of like, when he's on these social media, is he on the appropriate sites that you want him? Lock those features so that he's not able to access things that you don't want him to access. And I think that's the best you can do right now. Honestly, our world has changed, and I don't know how much it'll change back. This is the interesting thing, because if you look at the young generation right now, a lot of their social behavior was always on computers, has been forever. Gaming industry is on computer. It's all on computers, right? So whether or not we'll go back to the way it was when we were kids, I don't think that's ever going to happen. And I think the more we realize our capabilities through things like Zoom, for instance, the more people become comfortable with socializing even in this modality. So, you know, you can restrict it just as long as there's other healthy things that are in the schedule, but I would also be lenient about it.
There you go. I do want to point out, and we've been trying on the show as much as possible every day to give you guys something to do. And I know that sometimes it's just overwhelming. It's like, I've got all these things to do. And then when you want to do something, it's like, well, where was that thing that Shannon talked about? And we're constantly looking for ways to be able to give you guys information and not bombard you with emails and such. So we've always had a Pinterest page on Autism Live, and I myself curate and put things on the Pinterest page, and I put them in different categories. And what I did over the weekend was I started making categories. And so if you go to Pinterest, and if you've never been on Pinterest before, you know, you're welcome, because it's you're going to fall down a rabbit hole, because it's everything that you ever wanted, because you just have to search for it and you'll find everything you ever wanted. I think it's better than the internet. But don't get me started talking about Pinterest. But find Autism Live. We have our own Pinterest page on Autism Live, and you'll see the boards that I've created in there. And there's things that are just like crossing the midline and things like that. But I've specifically started curating boards that say at home. So then it'll say at home, and then it'll say visual schedules. And I tried to put in like, as many examples of visual schedules as I know you guys ask for. Like, how would I make a visual schedule for somebody who's nonverbal? Well, there's several in there. How would I make a visual schedule for somebody who is a teenager or an adult? How do I make a visual schedule for myself? How do I make a magnetic one? So there are a bunch of them in there. And I know none of us wants to do this project, but I can tell you for myself and for my child, when you do a visual schedule, there's something about it that our kids see and go, okay, I'm gonna get, and you make it, if you have to, if they don't read yet, you put pictures, but if they are reading, you put text. But there's something about being able to see, I'm going to get to have screen time later on, that allows you to say, this time is time when we just, do physical stuff. And I had this lesson brought home the other day, because I'm having this problem myself, right? Where my kid is wanting to be on screen time all of the time. And some of the time he has to be because of his school, right? And he has passions that, he's creating video games and he's editing video. And so I want him to have that screen time for those things, right? And he's doing his SAT prep on Khan Academy, right? He's doing all those things. I don't want to take that time away, but I need for him to still be interactive. I don't want to lose all the things that we've worked so hard on. And the other day we worked our way gently up to that we watched a movie with him, and it wasn't even a movie that I thought he was necessarily going to enjoy. And afterwards, I said this yesterday on the show. I said to him, you know what, this was so nice. I so enjoyed spending this time with you. And my kid, who is fully verbal now, said to me, oh, Mom, thank you so much for saying that. And my husband and I both learned through that, as much as he enjoys that screen time, we have to be feeding the other stuff. As much as they mew about it and say, I don't want to, in whatever way they're capable of saying it, we have to be working to have that interactive time with them, because it's good for their self-esteem. But check us out on Pinterest. And there are other things on there. I put 5 days worth of at-homes in there to talk about this week. But start with the visual schedule, because I think that's really, you talk about that all the time, right, Dr. Grampiche, the visual schedule?
Oh yeah, the scheduling right now, I mean, this whole thing that I keep talking about, routine is like, I think it just saves us right now. Like, honestly, and the visual schedule is a huge part of that. Early this morning, I was on a walk with my family, which we do now every day. And these routines, we were just talking about that, these routines of like, just everyone has a specific set of activities throughout the day is truly what makes us get through this period of time right now.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, so somebody has written in and said they need help for the login for iBehavioral training challenges. I just want to point out, because some people are watching who are card parents. So I just want to point out that if you are a card parent, you were given a special login to a special part of iBehavioral training that is different and separate. You will not find those new trainings there. If you are a card parent and you have not found your way to log into that special card thing, send an email to me, s.penrod@autism-live.com. We'll get you straightened out for that. That's special stuff just for you. But for everyone, card parents and everyone in the world, if you just go to ibehavioraltraining.com, they have a place for you to click on there to find those new trainings that are every day for things to do right now. And that's for everyone. But if you're a card parent, it can be confusing. You don't want to log in the way that you normally do. Also, somebody wrote in and said that yesterday in one of the different places that we were on, Dr. Grampiche, and I don't remember whether it was Autism Live or the private thing, that you were talking to a mom about that, you might even want to introduce some new toys to get them to be reinforcing. For some reason, I think that was the private one. She wants to know, what if you introduce everything and its mother, but it still returns to and I love that, the non-age appropriate toy. And can I tell you that somebody after the webinar said, I wished you had asked, what is the toy that you want them to play with, and what is the toy that they want to play with? That would have helped us. And I was like, that didn't even occur to me. But somebody said they wanted to know that. And can we talk a little bit about that? Because she specifies the non-age appropriate toys. Because I know that there are so many of you that are out there that your kids are playing, your 15-year-old's playing with Thomas the Tank. And, your 18-year-old daughter is playing with her Bratz doll. And that's a very emotional thing for a lot of people. But in this emergency, Dr. Granpeesheh, what's your advice about playing with non-appropriate, age-appropriate toys?
Well, I mean, I have a lot of comments about that. So
I'm sure you do.
In this emergency, I think it's one of those things that we just be lenient about. That's number one. But the second thing is, and more importantly, when you talk about age-appropriate toys, I think there's two things I want to say. One is sometimes we look at it's a personal thing. Like if, as Shannon said, if your 18-year-old is playing with Thomas the Tank, everything else that they're doing, is it age appropriate? Or is everything else also at a younger functioning level? Because if everything else they're doing is pretty close to age appropriate, then I can understand that you would want them to change and maybe start doing what 18-year-olds do in their recreational time. Otherwise, it's just makes sense, right? If their functioning level is a younger age, then that also applies to their choice of recreation, which is how they want to entertain themselves. Now, that issue aside, I just also want to point out that what you should be also doing, it's not about the toy so much as it is about what the child gets out of it. So if someone is entertaining themselves with, let's say, Thomas the Tank, maybe it's all about trains. And maybe it's not really about trains, but it's something about the routine of trains or the sound of trains, or I don't know, some feature of that you could take and then develop a similar type of toy or activity or whatever it is, but that is a little bit higher in age level. So for instance, maybe that person would now be interested in reading about trains as opposed to playing with Thomas the Tank. Or maybe they want to look at documentaries about trains. I don't know, but our interests are based on specific things, and they're not necessarily, it's not about the toy. Although in our field, honestly, with our kids, it could also be that he or she's just interested in the music that comes from the toy, the color of the toy, the sound of the toy, whatever it is. Find out what it is about. Sometimes we think of something as being appropriate or not appropriate, and then we want to eliminate the things that we classified as not appropriate. Let's find out what it is about that preferred toy that is so engaging for the child, and let's see if we can take that aspect and make it something that's maybe more socially appropriate.
That is like reason 3054 why I love Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh, because there are a lot of ABA people out there, I think, that push this idea of, everything has to be age appropriate. And let's face it, your mother-in-law pushes that. Why is he 18 and he's playing with a Thomas the Tank Engine? And it becomes an indictment of you as a parent. But I just want to point out, do you know who Mandy Patinkin is? Mandy Patinkin is a world famous actor. He played Che Guevara on Broadway in what's the Evita. I couldn't think of it for a second. And then he's had a brilliant film and television career. And do you know what he does with all of his waking spare time? He has a train track thing. He has a whole room in a building that he built near his house where he has trains and he builds and adds on to it. And he's just one of a million people. Those hobby model places wouldn't exist if it was only 8-year-olds who loved that kind of stuff. Now, but it's exactly what Dr. Granpeesheh is saying, is that he's capable of balancing his checkbook. He's capable of doing his job. He's capable of doing all those other things, but his passion, his hobby, the thing he spends all of his free time on is those trains. And you know, I don't know what his mother's mother-in-law was saying, but at a certain point, everybody shut up. So I think, you know, building that interest, you know, this is why we love her. Dr. Grant-Pichet tells us about keeping it reasonable and keeping it specific to the individual and allowing them to be who they are, but the very highest them that they can be. So that it doesn't prevent them from having a conversation with someone, but we get to stay, you know, true to their passion, which is trains. And can I just say that there was a mom years ago when we started Autism Live who would write into us about the fact that her son, the only thing he found reinforcing was The Lion King. And that was it. That's the only reinforcer she had. And he was all about the video Lion King. And I remember way back when Dr. Grant-Pichet saying, well, let's expand on the Lion King. Let's get the stuffed animal, because this was a little kid, and let's get the book. And then it transferred. So then it was all of a sudden he loved his Lion King book. Well, now we had two reinforcers. And then from there, they built in, and eventually were able to add, you know, the little plastic animals that you can get. So he started being interested in things that were jungle. So after a period of time, this kid had a bunch of things that reinforced him and that helped him with everything. So it does work, and it can. And you were right on the money. She said that trains was the thing. And she said functioning is age appropriate, but social is lower. And so, you know, but there are lots of things about trains that are social. Go ahead, Dr. Grant-Pichet.
Absolutely. And I want to go back to exactly what you were talking about, since it happens to be trains. There's, you know, just, it's so funny, Shannon, because years ago, I remember talking to a lot of my parents. We're talking like maybe 30 years ago. And a lot of the parents would say to me, like, he's so interested in just like building things and, you know, like making machines and so on and so forth. And I was like, that's not a bad thing. Like, you know, there's a lot of, there's room for that, right? And then before you know it, years go by and we have robotics teams in elementary school. So let me tell you, you can look around and you will find hobby classes or groups of kids getting together doing train type things. And that would be completely a way for him to enter a social environment and be able to deal with that. The key to it is not necessarily changing the item. It's, first of all, finding other people who have the same interest. And secondly, making sure that the person that your child doesn't do 100% of their time focused on that. And that's true for all of us. I mean, you know, you look at any person who has a passion about anything, everybody has the tendency to just want to do that one thing that they're very passionate about. And we force ourselves to do all the other things that we have to do, and then reward ourselves with that particular reinforcer. So I think for all of our kids, it's a matter of just teaching them over time that they can engage in the things that bring them joy, but only as a reward, and that there are other things in life that they need to accomplish in order to gain access to that.
Wonderful. We've got a very special guest who's watching the show right now, and I want to give a very special shout out to Griffin. I see Griffin, and Griffin, can you come over here and give me a high five, Griffin? Dude, I'm so glad to see you. I'm so glad you're here, Griffin. And I want to say that I see Alyssa as well, and I see, who else do I see here? I see a bunch of people, and I can't get my thing to move now. There we go. I see Cassidy. Cassidy, I haven't seen you in a while, and I've been busy, but I'm going to get through to you. And Leanne, I want to say hi to you. And I want to go back to a question that we had. I have a 20-month-old that has already tested high risk for autism on the MChat. I'm on a wait list for the developmental pediatric specialist, but I'm wanting a full eval, a diagnosis ASAP for him to have access to resources. What's the best way to go about that?
Sorry, I think it depends on what state you're in right now. If you have 20 months, I mean, anyone who's a diagnostician or a psychologist should be able to diagnose by observation at this point, and you have the MCHAT results as well for screening. So it depends on where you are. There are still wait lists for some states. I would recommend that you just get in touch with your pediatrician and ask for a referral to get a diagnosis as soon as possible. You know, an MCHAT will speed things up. And a lot of people are doing diagnosis right now via Zoom, so that is also possible to do.
Okay. And if you need to reach out to me specifically, s.penrod@autism-live.com. And Cassidy, I am sorry, I've been busier than, as my mother would have said, busier than a one-armed paper hanger. But Cassidy has been watching the show from the beginning of time, and Cassidy has her own show now. And I want to be on Cassidy's show, and Cassidy, we want to have you on here. So I promise, I will get back to you. Okay, and Kathy, I see Kathy. I want to say that, and I see Anna Marie. Question. I have a 33-year-old that is working at Ralph's. Oh my gosh. Essential worker, right? Any suggestions how I can discuss COVID virus safety? Today, I finally got him to wear a mask at work. He is very unaware of boundaries and space. What a hero, because he's going to work, and what a hero you are, Mom, that you're having that happen and wanting him to be as safe as possible. So Doreen, what can we do? Dr. Granpeesheh, what can we do to help this young man to stay safe at Ralph's? And for those of you who don't know, Ralph's is a grocery store here in California.
What a wonderful question, and how lovely. That's terrific. It so happens that at my Ralph's down the street, there's also a young man who is on the spectrum, and he works there, and I see him often. I think you just need to kind of list the things that you would like to be taught, you know, in terms of safety. Safety is a very abstract concept. It comes with things like, you know, the whole concept of safety is very difficult to teach. I wouldn't necessarily want to work on that. I would just outline the things that, the behaviors that you would want him to exercise. So for example, you need to wear a mask, rules, right? So you need to wear a mask. You need to maybe wear gloves. You need to stand 6 feet apart from others. You need to wash your hands every 30 minutes. So those would be like 4 really good rules. And I'm not sure that I would go too much into trying to like explain all of it. One of the things that we do with our very, very high functioning adults is to draw comic strips of people and to explain. I mean, with COVID-19, we've developed a lot of different instructional, I guess, protocols for teaching our kids or telling our kids what this is. It's a double-edged sword, so be careful, because you want to make sure they understand, but you also want to make sure they don't you don't cause a massive amount of anxiety. So the best we found for our adults is to compare it to, let's say, just a regular cold or a virus, and teach them that it is very important to not give it to other people, because then other people will get sick and unhappy. And that's as far as we go for the reasoning. But we do practice a lot of the behavior. And I think that's what you need to do, is practice the behavior and reward the behavior. Oftentimes we get very involved in trying to explain the reason to our kids, and that's not really what it's about. It's a lot of times it's just, this is the rule. Just like when you go to work, you clock in. Now, when you go to work, you have to put a mask on. That's a rule. The governor told us we have to do this. And you also have to wash your, so like just the behaviors, you know. And when he comes home, when he leaves, give him a small checklist, like on a very small piece of paper, and ask him to put his initials next to each item when he does it. He can put that in his pocket and he can have that with him all day long. And when he comes home, he can show it to you. And if he has done those things when he was supposed to do them, then you need to give him a very significant reward for having done a fantastic routine during the course of the day. So really, that's the kind of thing that I would focus on right now. It's a very difficult and abstract concept to be trying to teach people about safety right now.
Yeah. Okay, Amani says, I always learn so much watching this show. Thank you, Amani. I learned so much being here, let me just say. Okay, so Bonnie wanted to know, what are the signs of intellectual disability in an autistic kid? My son is 6 and he is functionally verbal, but he has not been tested for his IQ yet. Is there an intelligent test for a kid like him?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm sorry, Shannon, did they say he is verbal or not?
They said that he's functionally verbal.
Functionally verbal. Yeah, so there's 2 options. At 6, you're right on the cusp of a Whipsy and a Whisk, which is the same IQ test. It's the Wechsler test of intelligence, but it is verbal. It does give a lot of verbal information and instructions. So if his verbal ability is limited, it will pull down his score. So another way to test intelligence is through nonverbal tests of intelligence, which are designed for hearing impaired individuals. So I would recommend one of those. There's the Merrill-Palmer or the LITER, L-E-I-T-E-R, the LITER 2. They're very, very good tests. And that's how you will measure raw intelligence aside from language.
But, and tell me if I'm wrong here, Dr. Granpeesheh, one of the things that I was taught once my son was diagnosed, because I was always taught that IQ tests were rigid, that you got tested and that's what your score was and that's what it would be your entire life. That is not what we saw in our son. That it changed vastly after he had ABA. Is that a thing?
That's right. So IQ is malleable. In fact, we've written many articles about the fact that IQ changes. All IQ is mental age divided by chronological age times 100. So, if your mental age, the way that you, in comparison to all your peers, what you're doing is about the same as your regular own age, then your IQ is going to be 100 because it'll be 1 times 100. Normal IQ is 100. But the more your mental age increases, so the more you learn through anything, through ABA, through school, through whatever, the more you learn. And if you're learning more than your peers, then obviously your IQ score will increase. So when our kids are first tested, they're testing around, 60 or 70 IQ, because their mental age, they're functioning, let's say, like a 3-year-old, but they're actually 5 years old, right? So it's 3 divided by 5 times 100, and then that shows a low IQ. But as they catch up to their own age group, as they learn through ABA and they master all the things that other 5-year-olds are doing, then their IQ starts to approach 100, which is normal IQ. So IQ on its own is not that interesting when you're very young. It starts to become more interesting or I guess prescriptive when you're a little bit older, because it only indicates that it's going to be very, very hard for you to learn certain things. But having that aside, it's not a big, I always tell parents, IQ, diagnosis, all of these things, they change. It all changes. So even if you get a diagnosis today, don't be worried or scared, because everything that you're doing, especially if you're doing a lot of ABA and other interventions, the whole concept, the whole process of doing all of this is in order to change IQ, in order to change social behavior, in order to change the diagnosis. So it's not a life sentence by any means.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. We're saying hi to Human, and Human says, my son is autistic and he's 3 years old. He's not bothered with loud music or sounds. In fact, he loves loud music and he loves to dance to it. Should I assume that he will not develop a sensitivity to loud noise as he grows up? Or is there a possibility that as he grows up, he will, and it's being difficult for me, he will be intolerant to the loud sound?
So that's a great question. And no, so our children are not intolerant to the same stuff. So if he likes loud music and loud sounds, first of all, I would want to make sure that you've checked his hearing. So let's make sure that his hearing is normal, because otherwise, let's just make sure of that. So that aside, as he grows up, he most likely will not become sensitive to loud music or the sounds that he's enjoying right now. He may become sensitive to other sounds that you have not necessarily experienced yet. For instance, the sound that a fluorescent light bulb makes, which many of us don't hear, but your child might hear and it might bother him or her. Or let's say he might become sensitive to the sound of an airplane outside, which you and I might not hear at all until it's right above us, and our kids can hear that. So the frequencies of sounds are different. Sometimes our children have insensitivity to certain things, so they require it to be louder, but they have hypersensitivity to other decibels, which they just can't tolerate because it's so shrill. So that's kind of how it progresses. And sometimes our kids have no sensitivity to sound. So it's entirely possible also that your child will have typical sensitivities to the various sounds as well. We'll just have to wait and see.
Okay, this is probably going to be our last question. I apologize. You guys are writing in fast and furious, and we'll try to answer them as much as we can online. But the next question is, my 3-year-old son is saying one word and reading. How long does it take for him to communicate effectively or saying more than one word?
It doesn't say what age the child is.
3. They're 3 years old.
Oh, just be patient. It's really good if he's saying one words and reading, and all of that is fantastic stuff. And depending on the hours of work that you do, it could be faster or slower. If you do nothing at all, I can't predict which direction it'll take. If you do a lot of therapy, which right now your child is at the age where honestly the recommendation is 40 hours a week of 1-to-1 ABA therapy. If you really do that for a couple of years, then things can progress very, very rapidly. Is there another comment, Shannon?
There's all kinds of comments here. And I just want to say that, people have said they're so excited to use the electric toothbrush for oral motor. The mom with the son who's working at the Ralphs has said how deeply appreciative she is. She says, I like the checklist. He does well with those. He does have a routine when he gets in the car at home. And she said, thank you so much. He's been working there since he was 20. I'm reading a comment from somebody who has identified themselves as being on the spectrum and that they run a wildland fire suppression business. But they have a lot of health concerns. They're listing a tracheostomy, a G-tube, and 47XYY syndrome. Anything possible if you try hard. And thank you for that, because we all agree with that. 8 months out of the year, when not in fire season, I attend an adult autistic day program and do maintenance on the 21 group homes we own. What an inspiration you are. 1 day a week, I do a day program only. Dreams do come true if you work hard. I just wanted to take a second to acknowledge that wonderful person and to say what an inspiration they are. Thank you so much, you guys. And I apologize for the comments that we didn't have a chance to get to, but we're going to continue to be here. And we are back this afternoon in just a few hours. And if you haven't watched one of these episodes, it's so hard for me not to cry through the whole thing. I'm so inspired by the people who want to help our kids. And if you need to put that in your bucket today, because you just feel like maybe you're alone and you're feeling like nobody cares about you, tune in for this hour and you will see that there are people that you don't even know who love your kid and care about you and want to make sure that everybody's getting what they need. Don't you think, Dr. Grampiche, it's so inspirational?
Absolutely, very much so.
Real live heroes. So we will be back with that. I want to tease out a couple of things though for you. Tomorrow on Autism Live, Bonnie Yates is here and we're going to take the whole hour with her because so many of you have written to us about your fears about school and about what's happening now and what will happen this summer and what will happen in the fall, and your kids getting behind. Bonnie is a special education attorney. She has got some answers for us and some calls to action because there's some very interesting things happening right now. One of the things that was in the stimulus package was that the right to decide what the schools were going to do was given to Betsy DeVos, our head of education, our secretary of education, and she had 30 days to decide. We're being asked by a lot of our special ed attorney friends to let them know, because they're talking about a voucher system for our special ed. You're going to want to tune into this hour tomorrow to hear what's going on. And then on Friday, oh my gosh, and I know that this is exciting to Dr. Granpeesheh too, we are going to have Julie Matthews from Nourishing Hope here talking about the nutrition that we put into our kids specifically during this COVID time. And she says she's got 3 things that she can tell us that are going to help us to help our kids to be healthier during this emergency. I can't wait to hear what that is. And I know, Dr. Granpeesheh, that you have done a lot of work with Julie over the years, and that's a pretty exciting thing for you as well. So anything you want to say about that?
No, I love both of those folks, and I'm really glad you have them on the show. I'm going to try and join.
And every day, thank you. That would be great. We would, because anytime we have you, that's like sun, moon, stars, right? And we are going to continue to have that afternoon show the rest of this week. It's just a very special week here on Autism Live. So at 2 o'clock Pacific time, 5 o'clock Eastern time, we're back here with Card Heroes. I guarantee if you can get through it and not get misty or emotional, I don't know what to say, because I can't. They have to practically hose me down afterwards, and they're delightful. So tune in, be a part of the Love Fest. We're over time now, but thank you so much for being here. Dr. Granpeesheh, thank you so much. I learned so much every time.
Thank you so much, Shannon.
Thank you. But we'll be back at 2 o'clock. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now. Ugh.
The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod, and we are coming to you live from many places. I'm coming to you live from a room in my home. And I don't know if you can hear it, but we have helicopters who have been circling our neighborhood for, I don't know, the last half hour. We've had sirens. I have no idea what's going on, but if it sounds like I'm landing in an airport, that's why. And if anything urgent should happen, well, you'll hear me scream first. So I have no idea what's going on, but there it is. And, you know, we live close to a hospital, and at first we thought it was, you know, something going on at the hospital, but they're circling. So it suggests maybe that is not what's happening. We hope that everybody's safe and that all is well. And we're just going to keep coming to you as we do, no matter what happens. If the internet connection is there, we'll be here. Thrilled to be here with you this morning. As I said, I am Shannon Penrod, and we're going to be live with you for the next hour. We've got a very special show. We're going to be joined by Bonnie Yates sometime very soon, is my expectation, because we didn't even set up jargon today. At least we didn't, did we, Traven? We've reached that point in the program. We've been doing extra programming this week, and I have almost had it together every single day, but it's Thursday. Right, we don't have jargon today. Thank you, Traven. But it's Thursday, and I said to my husband this morning, oh, I can feel the sweater starting to unravel. Do you have days and weeks like that where it's like, oh my gosh, it's Thursday. We're in the home stretch, but it's been a lot. So excited for the programming that we've been doing. And, I got an email this morning from somebody who was asking me specifically about the fact they know that we're doing some extra webinars at night for card families. And they were saying, is this something that, the outside community could come to, because they look like they're really good, and they are. And I apologize that it is not something for the outside community. But this is our answer to that. The truth of the matter is that a lot of the things that we're doing in that webinar are things that we're doing on Autism Live. We're just doing this for the entire world. You don't have to have any credentials to be here at Autism Live. We hope that anybody and everybody comes here and is here with us, and that you can ask your questions, and we have experts. No, we don't get to all of the questions here. That is absolutely true. We don't, but I got to tell you that we try really, really hard to get to all of the questions, and we try to get to as many as we can. And then on the weekend, I try to go back and catch up on the things that we didn't get to. Now, you can imagine, we had Temple Grandin on the show last week, and we had so many comments that I'm still knee deep. I'm still answering them, and it's probably going to take me a couple of weeks. And by then we'll have Temple back on again, and there I'll be in that ditch again, trying to shovel out of all the comments that we get. But please know that it's not for lack of caring, that we absolutely care about what you have to share. And I want everybody to know to be persistent. And if you don't get your question answered, write it in again. I'm reading them all, and I do notice when there is a second one. Okay, so since we're talking about that, can you hear the helicopter right now? It seems to be hovering over my house. I may be wanted by the police. They might be looking for me, or at least it seems that way. Okay, so hopefully you can't hear it, because it's really loud. It's crazy. I could probably wave to the pilot and offer him a cup of coffee. All right, so Traven, can you show them all the ways that they can connect here with us at Autism Live? Because there are a lot of different ways. We try to be on as many screens as we can, and to be free and accessible on all of them. So it really comes down to your preference. Now, you'll notice that there's two columns, right? And there's the one column is all the places where we are live, and the other column is all the places where you can find us later on, in addition to those places, because a lot of for instance, even after we're live on Twitter and Facebook and Periscope and YouTube, you can find us there as well. But we are live on Twitter, on Facebook, on Periscope, and on YouTube. And then we later on podcast to iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Deezer. And you notice across the bottom is our homepage, autism-live.com. And you can find us there, and information that we have put out there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, that site has a lot going on it, because we know that people want different things from Autism Live. Some people just want to be here and commune when we do the live shows. And if you watch the show, that we are doing live shows right now, Monday through Friday. This week we're doing the morning show, and we've added an afternoon show, which I'm going to tell you about in a second. But continuing on, every week during this emergency, we are live Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. So that's 1 p.m. Eastern time, and you guys can do the math. I've lived in every time zone that there is in the continental U.S., and I know you guys get good at doing the math. It's the people on the coast that really suck at the math thing, right? I don't know what, we have to count on our fingers and go, is it plus, is it minus? And when you've lived in all of the time zones, it gets a little confusing. Hey, Miss Bonnie.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good. I was just FaceTiming with my little grandson.
Oh my gosh, how was that?
Well, it's always delicious and torturous.
Yes, because there's nothing quite like being there, but
I just want to grab those thighs.
Yes, but aren't you being a good grandma that you're still Zooming, even though that it's bittersweet, and getting the time to spend with that fabulous young man?
Well, I'll just say I was totally opposed to the idea when my daughter said, well, but when you're not here, you'll be able to, it's like, I don't like to do it that way, but really it's been great. It's just reassuring to see the people you love. So anyway.
Nothing like it. Thrilled that you are here and that you had asked for a little bit of extra time. So we moved you from Monday to Thursday so that we could, and I know that there were some specific things that you had wanted to chat about. Do you recall the desire to chat about those things?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I wanted to go through the frequently asked questions, but I also thought we had some questions, although I haven't pulled them up this morning because I got a little bit off my schedule. So I definitely want to answer people's questions.
Okay, so if people have questions, they should be writing them in. And I had thought that you had a very specific thing because I know that Bonnie, we got a lot of emails this week from COPA and from other places urging us that there's a thing going on right now about whether or not they're I'm not being very articulate.
It's going to do with the IDEA. And
yeah.
COPA is putting together a position paper on that. And the best thing people can do is log on to COPA and find out how you can, throw your support in behind COPA so that we can take a consistent position as a group of parents and educators and whatnot. Who have some real experience in dealing with disabilities, and we're stakeholders and our views should matter. So that's what I'd suggest people do about the as of yet not known state of affairs with Betsy DeVos. What I wanted to talk to people about is creativity during this time. And I also wanted to go over with people what we know as of today about how the law is working. So that was kind of my thinking about what we were going to do today. But I also take questions, and I think we had like 3 questions from.
Yes, I will find those. But do we want to start in on the other thing?
We can. Am I supposed to do the disclaimer and introduce myself and all that?
Please. I'm all discombobulated today, but yes, would you please do that for us?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's just, that comes with, not having our normal cues and things that we rely on to structure ourselves. Anyway, so my name is Bonnie Yates. I'm a special education attorney and the lucky parent of a person who was very fortunate to go through the CARD program when he was a young child diagnosed with autism. I work for Tollner Law Offices, TOLLNER. You can find us on the web. My phone number, if you live in California and you want to consult with our office, is 310-245-1968. You can go to the website and fill in a form and we'll do an intake for you. We answer questions here, basically focusing on California law, but we also look to the federal law because it applies in 50 states. And if you have a specific problem, we'd recommend that you talk to an attorney in your state about it, because the advice we're giving here on the air is general in nature.
Wonderful. And thank you for all of that. We have really enjoyed having you to be somebody that we can refer things to. I know one of the biggest concerns that a lot of parents have had during this period of time, I think first and foremost, they were concerned about, getting their child home, getting safe, and getting their ABA services. And once families have had that sort of secured, we see that very quickly the thing that they are the most concerned about is what's happening educationally right now, what their rights are, and I know you've been talking with us about that a little bit on the show. And impressing upon people how important it is to keep a diary, a journal about what's happening and how your child is reacting to it and what services the school is offering and whether those services work, whether you were able to do them, whether you're seeing any signs of regression. But I think we're all a little bit at sea that we don't know what's going on. Does anybody, Bonnie?
Well, I heard a presentation by an economist the other night that was really smart, and he basically said that economists have now concluded that rather than saying that health has to be sacrificed in order to maintain a vital economy, what you do is you stabilize everybody health-wise, and then everything else will fall in line behind that. So I think that's what you're saying. We've spent 2-3 weeks learning how to live at home and make sure that we're health-wise safe and we have food to eat. And now the question of making sure that our kids don't regress too much during this time period becomes paramount, because we know how sensitive our children are to changes in their environment. So I was going to talk about the frequently asked questions, and I will, but I wanted to say in terms of creativity during this time, people don't really know what the rules are, and that includes school district people, and different districts are adapting different policies, and it's quite inconsistent and just sort of interesting to watch play out. So I had a conversation yesterday with someone after her IEP, and it sort of went like this. We had a Zoom IEP, and we started talking about the IEP, but we only talked a very little bit about what actually is going on right now, which was sort of funny that we didn't focus on that. We got off the phone, and the client talked to her son about what he's doing in school, or what his telelearning is like. And he said, it's a waste of time. I'm not learning anything, and neither is anybody else. So I said, well, if that's true and you document that, then maybe the thing to do is to come up with some activities that you're going to do during this time period that are going to allow you to continue to progress rather than regress. And then we'll sort of take it up in the summer or whenever. Now, there's no guarantee if you pay for stuff now that it's going to get reimbursed, since we are unclear on what districts are going to do as far as comp ed. But I think they're going to have to do something as far as comp ed. So I think the question becomes, is there stuff that you could pay for that if you couldn't get the money back, it would still be worth it to you? Is there stuff that you can pay for that if you could get 50% of the money back, it would be worth it to you? Are there things you can do through your insurance or get the regional center to help with that would take the place of doing telelearning if it's not that efficient for you? So what I worked out with this client is that we're going to work on reading. And so she's going to purchase the direct instruction curriculum and pay for a little bit of help from the direct instruction people to start working on her son's reading, which is a huge underlying issue and prevents him from learning. And that's what he's going to do for a couple hours a day, rather than just kind of go, with all due respect to his school, it's just really not structured enough for him. He needs a lot of structure, and it's not really enough to get an email that says, do this. So that's a way that we're being creative now, because we have this time to do it. So that's what I mean about creativity. And we will make a claim for reimbursement for the services that she pays for during this time period. But we're going to be in a position where if she doesn't get fully reimbursed for them, it's still okay. And it'll be worth it. For another client who has a very severe teenage son with autism, telelearning doesn't work at all for him. So our search has been about finding a company that accepts his insurance that will come into the home and take and do ABA. And I know that there are a lot of companies that are not able to do that, but there are a few that are starting to do it. And for him, that's going to be a lifesaver, because he will regress. So each situation needs to be looked at in terms of, are you getting value out of what you're doing? And then if not, what can we do about it?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that are still not entirely clear on the whole thing, that ABA is considered a medically necessary treatment, which means that if an ABA provider chooses to continue providing services, and if the family chooses to continue, then even in a lockdown situation, it's just like when nurses go to work, or when the people who work at the dialysis center go to work. They're medically necessary. They, they have clearance to go into the home. It absolutely is something that can happen and is happening. Now, many families choose and say, the risk of having somebody come into our home, we're going to say that our child is doing well enough that they're choosing to do telehealth, which is also another great choice. But for some of those kiddos where the behaviors are severe and they need more support, it is absolutely, a thing that family is requesting and needing. There are good ABA providers and wonderful heroic therapists that are still going to the home. CARD is one of those providers. And every day this week, we've been doing shows at, so this is our morning show, and we've been doing shows at 2:00 in the afternoon featuring some of those rock stars, some of those heroes. We literally are calling it CARD Heroes. And we talk to between 6 and 8 of those people per day, and Dr. Grampiche and I do short interviews with them. I got to tell you, Bonnie, these are the most uplifting group of people. They are like ferocious and courageous and heroic. But it sounds like, it's exactly the kind of people that this client of yours needs, because, and I just want to make it clear that there are people out there who are like, nobody should be doing this anymore. And I want them to be clear about what they're saying, because we wouldn't say that at a dialysis center. We wouldn't say that, for people who are getting treatment for cancer. We wouldn't say that at the hospital. So we shouldn't be saying that about ABA. It is considered a medically necessary treatment. Sorry, just wanted to stop and say it.
It's a personal choice, also. And some people want to serve and they feel compelled to serve. And some people feel that they've now had the virus and they've recovered. So it's really it's an individual case-by-case situation.
And others feel that they should stay home. I'm one of the people who said, I need to stay home. I need to not put other people at risk. And I have somebody I have to take care of, and I have autoimmune issues. I don't want to be clogging up the hospital. I'm one of those people trying to serve from home. Yeah. But it is a personal choice. You're right.
It is. But I am starting now to get, questions from people about sort of the what to do's. I had another interesting discussion with a woman a couple days ago. She said, my district is not letting people come into the home, even though my ABA provider will come into the home. But I also know that 2 other districts nearby are following a different policy, and they're letting my ABA company come into the home. And she said, what can I do about it? And I said, it might be hard to get an IEP right now because the timelines for IEPs are relaxed. But I said, if you go to the California Department of the Office of Administrative Hearings website for California, you can print out a very simple form complaint, and you can file for due process. When we talked about how she would make her allegations, I said, the law as to resolution sessions has not been changed. You can get a resolution session within 10 days of filing of your complaint. And I bet you anything, when you sit down with the administrators at that level, as opposed to the IEP team level, you can get them to agree to make a deal with you so that you can have the in-home ABA. And she's somebody who has a kid who's severe. She said, I'm on the phone with you now, and I've had to lock my son in his bedroom in order to be able to do this call. So what we're doing now is we're taking each case individually, and we're coming up with the best solution we can for the circumstances on the ground. And we're just going to keep pushing through.
Okay, we've had a bunch of comments that have come in.
Sure.
Starting with somebody saying that their school district just changed their policies. They said, my school district just made big changes today, and we are still trying to figure it out. They sent out a robocall, and we need to understand. We need to know what it means. And I would love for that person to write back and tell us what district, and give us any quotes from your robocall. So that maybe we can have Bonnie decipher for us.
They could probably forward the call.
Yes, but I wouldn't have a way of getting it while we're on the show.
No, but we can talk about it later.
Yeah, we absolutely
Okay.
could. Somebody else says, I want to, and they said such a great comparison, Shannon, about the dialysis thing. I want to agree with you about help. It's okay to ask for help, especially during this time. Ask and you will be surprised what happens. People are waiting to help. Am I right? And I found that to be true. Somebody else said, thank you, ladies. And another person says, I just got my son regional services and Medi-Cal. Star of California ABA services are trying to get my son's services approved, but my Anthem Blue Cross is denying us coverage. What can I do?
Okay.
And,
can we stop there? Because
yeah.
I want to announce this on the air. I've been meaning to. I mean, first of all, if you're looking for an evaluator that will come in and test your kid now during COVID-19 and you're in California, I've got 2 names for you of people that are willing to do that. One is Dr. Ann Simon. She's in Los Angeles. The other is Dr. Helena Johnson. She's in Long Beach, and they have said they will test kids now if people want to do that, which is good because we have a couple clients that have gotten IEEs approved, but then the thought was who can do the testing. For the
what was the second one's name? Dr. Helena
Johnson. I'll send you the contact information.
Okay.
But for insurance, I have 2 go-to people. I don't do insurance at all. It's complicated. It's quite different from the IDEA. There's a lawyer who I think you might know, Shannon, because he's done a lot of card cases. His name is Randy Curry. He's in Newport Beach. And he's where I send all my people to if they have insurance issues and they've gone as far as they can. He's had very good luck with representing card families. There's also a woman in the East Bay in Northern California. Her name is Karen Fessel, Fessel, and her project is called Autism Health Insurance Project. She's who I send people to if they say something like, hey, my kid is 6. How long do you think I can keep my ABA going under my, at school, under my Anthem Blue Cross policy, blah, blah, blah. She follows all of that. So, people, to the extent that you have insurance questions, what I've seen is that follow up to one of these 2 professionals gets you a lot of information, and that's been valuable. And in some cases has resulted in people being able to perpetuate their insurance services in circumstances where they thought they weren't going to be able to do that.
And I can chime in that, as part of the caregiver support department at CARD, we work with people who get denials that are CARD clients. And one of the first things that we tell the family to do is to immediately ask for the denial in writing, and to ask why you are being denied in writing. And once you have that, that's going to help you a lot. But the very first thing, when you get the letter of denial, there's a place on it from all insurance. They're required by law to have a place that on that letter that tells you how to appeal. And the first appeal we see across the board almost never gets, the decision turned around. If you apply for the first appeal, you are almost always going to be denied on the first appeal. But it's important to realize that almost always it's because the people who are reviewing the first denial are the same people who gave the denial to begin with. But once you get that first denial, then you get a denial letter that comes with further instructions about how to do a second appeal. And when you do the second appeal, it goes to people who do not work for your insurance company. They're an independent panel. And we see that often, parents are able to get that decision turned around because they have a diagnosis and they have the insurance, and whatever the reason was for the denial doesn't hold water most of the time. But having a lawyer to do that for you, infinitely easier. But those are the steps that we tell people to start to pursue in order to, and they're largely successful, but you got to steel yourself that it's a process, and the first time you're almost certainly going to be denied.
Well, interestingly, what you're talking about is a gatekeeper function, and it's really a systemic thing that you encounter. Like if you apply for Social Security disability in Los Angeles, your first level of appeal is almost always going to get denied. If you go to an IEP team meeting and you appeal to them to ask them to provide a certain service, what I was saying to that woman before when I told her to get a resolution session is get the decision making away from people that are too personally invested in the decision and have been instructed by their higher ups that they don't have the discretion to make those services available. So it's really disappointing to get turned down. But I just see, like with IHSS, I mean, there's a lot of different instances in which you just got to push on through. And you ladies and gentlemen already know how to do that because you've been pushing on through since you got the diagnosis. You wouldn't be here if you hadn't.
Absolutely.
Should we try to do the questions?
They would like to know if you have any East Coast resources, and I happen to know that you have a great East Coast resource.
Yeah, we talked about Barbara Ebenstein, Ebenstein, in New Rochelle, New York.
And
she's my East Coast resource.
And
she may know other people in other East Coast states, so I'd go to her and see who she can recommend you to.
And they said, okay, appeal and keep fighting. And that is your mantra. Somebody else says, my son is past due for a triannual review. They keep pushing it off because of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. We start distance learning Monday. Are schools legally supposed to do virtual IEP and triannual meetings? And thank you.
Well, the federal government has said we have to continue to do IEPs. And so the conversation that I had with a representative from LAUSD, we were talking off the record. It's just interesting sometimes, like he was at home, I was at home, and the dynamic shifts a little bit. Everybody maybe takes their armor off a tiny bit. And he said, listen, I called him. I said, I've got this other case. It's log jammed. I can't seem to get them to schedule the IEP meeting. And I know it's because they're hung up on the fact that they were supposed to do assessments before this IEP was to occur, and they can't do them. And I said, am I right that they can do the IEP using existing information from other evaluations? And he said, absolutely. So you should be telling the team that you need your IEP and you're entitled to it. And even if guidelines or rules are relaxed, it doesn't mean there are no rules. And tell them what information you have and why it's sufficient to develop the IEP, and float the idea that some action now is better than waiting until the fall when there's going to be a lot of overload and confusion, and it's going to be hard to get a meeting then. And if they refuse, ask them to give you prior written notice why they won't hold the IEP meeting now. We talked about that. We talked about that on Tuesday a little bit. Shannon's got.
And unfortunately, though, Bonnie, a lot of these folks weren't at that meeting. That was a private meeting.
Okay, no, I understand. So on Tuesday, what we discussed was the concept of prior written notice, which is basically if the district says no, they're legally required to justify why they're saying no and what documents and information they relied on. And we sent to Shannon a template for what the district's prior written notices might look like. And we also sent her the statutory quote with a statutory reference and quoting the language of the federal regulation that requires the district to give you prior written notice.
We'll post that in the Facebook comments later today.
The takeaway is the district can say no to you, but they have to justify it. And oftentimes once you press them to justify it and they realize they're going to have to, they kind of rethink their position.
Wonderful. Sorry, I'm having a allergy coughing fit. Sorry. Totally healthy, totally isolated, totally healthy. Okay, so back to that's it for the questions for the moment, although I'm sure more will come in just a second. But back to what you were talking about, the frequently asked questions, because we're like 10 minutes left now.
Okay, well, let's do that. Although I thought you had some written questions that you wanted answered as well.
I haven't been able to find them, Bonnie. I apologize.
Should I try, or should I just do frequently asked questions?
If we have the frequently asked questions, let's do those.
All right, we do have frequently asked questions. Okay, question 1. Can my child get special education services if my school is closed because of COVID-19? Answer. If your school is providing educational services like virtual classrooms or teacher check-ins or learning resources, i.e. work packets, access to ebooks or audiobooks to general education students, they must provide students with disabilities equal access to those services and resources. So the first important principle is equal access. Most districts are doing distance learning for their general ed students because they want to keep their teachers on the payroll. So if you're going to do that, equal access may require accommodations and modifications. So you can ask for those things. Accommodations should mirror your IEP, such as materials in an accessible format, offering no-cost devices, subscriptions, and assistive technology, or chunking and reducing assignments. Modifications may lower the level of the actual curriculum, but should be appropriately ambitious, not just busy work. Equal access may also require individualized direct instruction and related services such as speech therapy, occupational therapy, or behavioral support. So those are all things to consider when you're setting up what you're going to do at home. The delivery of education must consider the individual and unique needs of your child. For some students, telephone or online video conferencing instruction or services may work. For others, services may need to be directly provided at a school site or in the home. The delivery method should take into account the health and safety of the child, your family, and other students and staff. You can request an individualized education plan meeting to discuss an interim IEP and put appropriate accommodations, modifications, and services in place during the closure. You may ask that this IEP be held on the telephone or via online video conference. And in any case, give 24 hours written notice that you're going to record.
Frozen at the moment, but let's see. Oh, maybe it's me.
I can hear you.
You were frozen, but it says my internet. Okay. It said my internet was frozen for a second. So you're probably fine. It's probably just me. Go right ahead. Did
you hear the part where I said request an IEP meeting?
I didn't hear anything.
Oh, you didn't hear anything? The whole question?
No. Just about like a minute before, it had stopped. Okay. So request an IEP meeting.
Request an IEP meeting to discuss an interim IEP and put appropriate accommodations, modifications, and services in place during the closure. You may ask that this IEP be held on the telephone or via online video conference.
Well, and that's really interesting because after, the things that people have written in since we last checked the comments, the person who said that the triannual has been being put off because of the emergency says the assessments were already done.
Well, and someone else, really bogus. That's super bogus.
Yeah.
They say whether they're in California.
No, they don't, but please write in and tell us. They also say that it was scheduled for March 17, which is when schools closed. And then somebody else said that theirs was scheduled for March 19th. Now, can they just, what should they do, Bonnie? Should they send an email to the principal and say, I expect for this to be rescheduled in a timely manner?
Yeah, and tell them if they won't, that they're going to file for due process.
Yeah.
And that they're going to make a complaint to the California Department of Education. The districts don't like that. But yeah, you may need to do this differently than you've done it before.
And the truth of the matter is that these people are still on the payroll and they're still functioning. It's just many of them are functioning from home and they're holding Zoom meetings. So they can hold a Zoom meeting with you.
Yeah, I had 3 IEPs in the last couple of weeks, and I've done mediations, and I've got more coming up. I've done a resolution session. Okay.
Yeah, the teachers haven't been laid off. The teachers have not been furloughed, and the special education people, to my knowledge, nobody has been furloughed or laid off. The school year is still in session for many more weeks. They say that they're in. So one of them says they're in San Marcos School District, and the other one says they're in North County, San Diego, both of them California.
Well, we can talk to you both off the air if you want. That's one thing. Let me skip question 2 and read question 3 because it is your question. My students' annual IEP team meeting was scheduled to occur after March 17th. It was canceled when all school closed. Will the district reschedule the IEP? Answer. It should right now. Every school district is supposed to comply with the federal laws regarding annual IEPs. CDE guidance correctly states that federal timelines remain in force, meaning that school districts should do their best to adhere to the maximum extent possible to adhere to them. The idea still requires school districts to convene IEP meetings during school closures. During this extraordinary public health emergency, school districts will likely excuse strict compliance with timelines for IEP meetings. If the school district has already missed the date for your child's annual IEP, then they will very probably reach out to you to convene the meeting. It will either be virtual or a phone conference. Some districts are already trying to schedule IEPs while others have not formulated a plan. Reach out, preferably in writing via email, to your school district to ask if they're planning on convening an IEP meeting. Let them know you are ready and willing to participate via phone or video conference. So long as your district schedules an IEP between now and when the time schools open again, we believe the courts will excuse any timeline violations. The only thing I'd say about that answer is this was sort of our thinking about this as of Monday. It's now Thursday. Many more districts, even in the last 3-4 days, have come online and started scheduling things again. My suggestion is if you can't get an IEP meeting to tell them that you're going to have to file for due process, well, you first ask for prior written notice, and you also tell them you're going to file a compliance complaint. And if you have to, file for due process. Those are avenues we wouldn't normally use, and they might, strictly speaking, not be the most legal way to proceed ordinarily, but these aren't ordinary times. All I'm trying to do is like shake the tree and have some things fall out. I'm not really too hung up on procedure. Like, oh, well, but normally we don't file for due process until we've had an IEP meeting. Well, if the district is refusing to hold an IEP meeting and they won't tell you why, and virtual options are available and the district's open, I think you got to bypass all of that and say, fine, I'm going to get the state involved.
Yeah, I think we all are trying to be cognizant of the fact that we live in extraordinary times, but some people are taking advantage of it. And the fact of the matter is that your school officials are still on the payroll. They still need to be doing productive things and providing education and doing IEPs. And I think sometimes autism parents are trying to be so respectful that in the course of doing that, we allow people to walk all over our necks. And in this instance, you don't need to worry about that, folks. You can be nice, you can be polite, but you still get to have your IEP meeting right now. And we have one person who's written in and said, I wished I'd known that IEP meetings were required to be annual. I went years growing up with no follow-up, and I could have advocated for myself in the older grades if I had known. I do think it's important that we be telling our kids and that at an older age that we ask if our kids are aware of their circumstances, and best for yourself, but at a certain point, my son was present at his IEPs, and they have the right to be there and advocate for themselves. Is that not correct, Bonnie?
It is, but I'm not that big of a fan on having kids come to IEP meetings, except
really?
Well, because I think a lot of the time you get into discussion about things that are things that need to be discussed, but might not be great for the student to hear. So for older kids, I think the best way to handle that is have them come in at the beginning of the meeting for 10 minutes and introduce themselves and talk about what's going on with them, or have them come in at the end and you can kind of praise them up and tell them that we discussed all this stuff and you're doing really well. I unfortunately went to an IEP meeting many years ago at Venice High School, where I ended up concluding that part of the purpose of the meeting was to punish the parent for her advocacy by dragging her daughter into a meeting where the daughter, who was a teenager, had to hear things that should have never been discussed in front of her. So I'm extremely careful about that now, and I only do it in the manner that I've just described to you.
Okay, I think that makes good sense. We are out of time, but Bonnie, I have to thank you for being here with us and for always being such a wonderful, wonderful resource for us. Tell us again where people can reach you at Tollner Law Offices.
You can reach us on the web. If you go into the Tollner Law Offices website, there's an intake form if you want to fill it out and talk to one of us. There's a phone number on the website. I can be reached at 310-245-1968. And next week, I'm going to continue, hopefully, with the frequently asked questions and answers, and we will keep refining what we're telling you based on what we're learning.
Now, Bonnie, I have you scheduled for being on Monday.
Yep. You do.
Okay, great. Okay, fabulous. And I do want to say before we go, a couple of things that Mary Jane White wrote in and said that today is Ruffin's 29th birthday.
Oh my God.
Isn't that amazing? And for those of you who don't know who Ruffin is, I hope that we will have the opportunity to introduce you to Ruffin and his mom very soon. And Ruffin is right now a PhD student in robotics at UCSD.
No surprise. No surprise.
Right? And he's an amazing gentleman who is featured on the Recovered video for CARD, and is a brilliant, brilliant young man. And so we want to say happy 29th birthday to Ruffin, who's been such a light in so many of our lives. And I knew that you would find that interesting, Bonnie. I also want to
I haven't heard his name in many, many years, but even then it was very obvious that he was a bright spark.
Yes, absolutely. I also want to say that we are going to be back this afternoon for the afternoon version of Autism Live. We'll be back with Card Heroes at 2 p.m. Pacific time. And in the interim, if you are a CARD parent, we have a very special webinar happening at noon in just 1 hour with Dr. Dorian Grant-Pichet answering your questions. I know for the rest of you, you're like, what? But you had your opportunity yesterday, and I'll have it for you again on Wednesday. But if you are a CARD parent, check your email. There is a very special opportunity with Dr. Grant-Pichet in just 1 hour. For everybody, we'll be back with Dr. Grant-Pichet here at 2 o'clock for that CARD Heroes. Bonnie, thank you so much for being with us. Don't forget, you guys, tomorrow, Julie Matthews from Nourishing Hope is here with us for the whole hour of Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. We're going to talk about the food piece. And she says she's got 3 things to help you in the midst of all this mashugana, 3 things to help you to make sure that you're getting the right nutrition and that your kids are too. So you're not going to want to miss that. That's tomorrow on Autism Live on the morning show. And tomorrow is Dr. Grant-Pichet's birthday.
Wow.
So yes, tune in for that. All right.
Okay.
Bonnie, thank you so much. Bless you.
Day,
I will talk to you soon. Okay. Everybody else, we'll be back later on this afternoon. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.
The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live and to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Nancy, I don't think your computer, there you are.
Here I am. Hi, Shannon. Good
Hi,
morning.
Nancy. Haven't seen you in a whole week.
I know. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
I'm better that you're here. It's so fun to be with you this morning. And I'm excited because we have amazing guests this morning that's going to be
I'm very excited.
But we'll talk about that in a second. But just, this check-in, because we have a viewer saying, hello, gorgeous people. Hello, gorgeous to you. So we're thrilled because we've got this big day today, Nancy, here at Autism Live, and we're kicking it off this morning with you And Julie Matthews is going to be joining us in just a second, talking with us about nutrition and being healthy and keeping our kids healthy and setting them up for success. Then later on today on Autism Live, we have our very last in a series. We're doing afternoon shows right now, Nancy, featuring card heroes. These are the people who are still, I know you've got some of them coming to your house, some of these amazing people. And I'll tell you what, I got to be honest with you, this hour in the afternoon that we're spending with these young people has been the thing that I needed so badly, because they fill me with hope. These people and how much they love our kids, and to hear them get emotional about how much they're missing our kids. Oh, I don't know about you, Nancy, but when I hear about how people feel privileged to work with our kids, it makes me feel at least 100 pounds lighter than I am.
Yes, it does. And there are a lot of those guardians that, really feel like this is their life's work to do this. And you got to love them for that.
Absolutely. So it's delightful to have them with us. And Dr. Granpeche is with us during that hour. And today is her birthday. And I just want to say to anybody who watches the show and has ever learned something from Ask Dr. Doreen, or, you've had the pleasure to have had CARD employees work with you or with your kiddo, please spread the love, send in a message either in this show or tune into the 2:00 hour when she's here, 2:00 Pacific time, and tell her yourself, happy birthday, because to me, she's the original card hero, right? She's the card hero from which all card heroes spring, because it wouldn't have happened without her. She created the place. It was her vision. So make sure that you tune in for that. And plus, I have a special little video that I'm going to be debuting in that second hour later on today with two very, very, very special guests who join me to say happy birthday to Dr. Granpeche. And believe me, they've never been on the show before, and you'll love it. So okay. And I want to let you guys know that we're going to be joined any second by our guest, our fabulous guest, Julie Matthews from Nourishing Hope. And you guys are already writing in questions. We will make sure that she has opportunity to hear those questions. But they will be from a nutritional and health standpoint. But I think so far what I'm seeing, that, you guys are in line with that, saying hello to everybody wherever they are. I know we've got several different continents already joining us, Nancy, which is super awesome. And yeah, she's in our waiting room. So let's welcome Julie Matthews, Nancy, to be with us, because we don't want to frog around today. We don't get Julie very often, and we want to make sure that we get plenty of time to talk to her.
Following her advice for many years now for my own sons.
Me too. Julie, welcome to Autism Live and to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. You're here with Shannon and Nancy.
Hi, Julie.
Hi.
So thrilled to have you.
Thank you.
This is so wonderful. We've been talking about this all week. We're so excited that you're here because Nancy and I are big fans of yours. As Nancy just said, she's been following your advice. I've been following your advice. And I think both of us feel like it's really helped us with our kids. Am I right, Nancy?
Yes, I feel like Julie's advice has helped me a lot with my own son. So really thrilled to actually meet her today and have a chance for our viewers to ask her questions, because there's a lot to get into here.
Thank you. That's so nice to hear.
Yeah, and maybe we want to start off by let's hit the highlights here first. That your website, which is Nourishing Hope, is it .com or .org?
NourishingHope.com.
.com. Okay, and you have a book. Which tell us the name of the book.
Nourishing Hope for Autism.
Do you see a theme here, folks? and then you have a summit that's coming up very soon. What is the name of the summit?
NourishingHopeSummit.com.
There you go. There's the theme. We don't have to guess. And tell us when and how we would access that summit.
So that runs from April 20th to the 26th. It's all free online. We have 5 interviews every day for a whole week. And we're going to go, it's actually designed a little bit more like a course in that each day has a theme. So we start with, you know, what's the science behind all of this? And then we go into, you know, how to support what good healthy nutrition looks like and picky eaters and really helping them. And we go, you know, step by step through helping with anxiety and hyperactivity and mood and focus and all of that. And we just take people through so that whether you're a brand new beginner and you haven't started anything and you want to understand why should I spend my time doing this, or you are really experienced and you've been doing it for 10 years and you want to know what's next, we have things for all the different families.
That's wonderful because, you know, I remember being a newbie and hearing you speak and going, okay, I have new things to do. And it really created an entirely different path for us that we had many benefits from. But, you know, now I've been on this path for a while and I want to hear some of the new things because you know, Nancy, you and I have been doing this for a hot minute, have we not?
That's right, we have been. And it's always good to hear new things. I'm curious, Julie, before we dive into some of your recommendations and other things, just to find out how you got into this path.
It's a really great question. People always ask me. I feel like it was divine intervention. I was in nutrition school and I was studying my first question was, you know, I was actually at a park and there were all these kids and it was like a kids fair and there was like pizza and donuts and all sorts of junk food. And I started to think, is this part of the reason we've got some of the childhood epidemics like ADHD in such high amounts these days? And so I started studying that. I did a big paper on that. And then it was just the first man that I met that I interviewed was Michael Lang. And Michael Lang has since passed away from pancreatic cancer. But at the time, he said, we spent 5 minutes talking about ADHD when I interviewed him. And we spent all the rest of the time on autism and gluten and dairy and glutathione and all of this. And he said, you know, nobody is doing this. We need people that do this. And I just thought, well, I guess this is my new calling in life. And it was mostly because of seeing the kids suffering so much and then having them be told that there's nothing they could do when I knew that there were things that they could do. So that's really how it all started. And after diving into it and helping families and seeing kids feel better and get better, I mean, you can imagine I was committed. So that's how it got started.
Great.
Amazing. And we've already got people who are writing in and saying that they've already registered for the seminar because they can do it right now, right? If they go to nourishinghope.com.
Absolutely. They can go there now. And as we go through the conversation today, I have a special handout that I created actually for our conversation today, but everybody that registers will get this handout we'll talk about, as well as a bunch of other things. So yes, they can go there anytime and sign up.
Okay, wonderful. Now, we had been saying all week long that you've got 3 things that you want to recommend that we can do in this emergency, because I think a lot of us have felt a little less empowered. You can't quite get to the stores that you used to be able to get to or get to the items that you could get to, making it a little bit harder. But if we've seen some success with this kind of thing, then we know we don't really want to, this is not the moment that we want to let it slip, right?
Exactly.
And for people who have not yet tried, you know, some of the things that you're going to talk about, there are some benefits to doing these things immediately right now in this COVID emergency, correct?
I believe so. You know, I'm not going to claim to be a COVID expert, but you can even talk, you look at the World Health Organization, the UK government, they're all saying the best thing we can do right now. There was an article I was just reading, I can probably post the link. The best thing we can do is eat healthy and try to be as healthy as we can. And
I got to be honest, I'm going to interrupt you for a second. I wasn't even thinking about that in terms of staying healthy. I was thinking about staying sane because you're stuck in your house with your kiddos and you want to minimize behaviors. And but there is a benefit to keeping your inflammation load down. I'm not going to steal your thunder. I'm going to let you tell. But can you tell us the 3 things? And Nancy and I are going to drop our cameras out so you get to be full screen.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes, I know. But we're here. We're not going away. So we'll be right here.
Great. So to me, the first thing that families can do is get rid of the junk food, the artificial additives, processed food, that can do an incredible, that can play in a really powerful role in helping kids and their behavior. We know from decades of research that artificial colors, flavors, preservatives are known to create hyperactivity and irritability in all types of children. So whether they have a condition or they're neurotypical, or we just know that these additives can create behavioral challenges. And so that's the first one. And whether it's good or bad, a lot of the junk food is not in the stores anyway, because sadly, people are buying junk food in larger amounts than ever. So there isn't a lot of it. I guess that's a good thing. But if it's in your home, that stuff is usually pretty easy to get rid of and can make a really, really profound difference. To me, just doing that is really going to be very helpful. I have seen kids get very hyper, not be able to sleep at night, aggressive, anxious, irritable, can't focus, jumping, all over, just not being able to stay calm from those artificial colors, flavors, and preservatives. So that would be number one. Number two would be to try to get as healthy a food as possible. As I was saying earlier, that the World Health Organization and others are saying, the best thing we can do is, in addition to obviously all the obvious things like trying to be as safe as possible with washing our hands and all that stuff, is to try to make our system as strong as possible. And that involves eating healthy food. And so vegetables, fruits, whole foods, less processed foods, those kinds of things. And then the third piece of it is, Shannon, you were talking about inflammation. So reducing inflammation as much as we can. So dairy creates a lot of congestion, a lot of inflammation. Gluten can create a lot of inflammation in the gut. So as we go through, we can talk a bit more about gluten and dairy. And that's one of the things I wanted to talk as we go on here. I created a handout of ideas for people that have 3 ingredients or less. So healthy food you can do for your family right now with staples you most likely have in your kitchen at this point in time, or you should be fairly easy to get them at the grocery store that are going to be healthy and support your system. And they all happen to be gluten-free and dairy-free. So whether you want to try a gluten-free and dairy-free diet now, or just add some new foods so you can start to incorporate some, because you might want to try a gluten-free, dairy-free diet at some point, you'll have a host of 10 or more very easy kid-friendly recipes you can try right away. And we can dive into some of those. But when people sign up for Nourishing Hope Summit, they will get this handout in addition to a number of other resources that I can share.
Spectacular.
Julie, let's talk about the gluten-free, dairy-free diet for a minute, because it is highly recommended in autism circles. A lot of parents do adopt that diet, but a lot of parents think it's too difficult to do. What do you say to that for those that say it's too difficult?
Yes. Well, it's like, I want to first acknowledge it is challenging at the beginning. When you're first getting started, it's a big learning curve. And so you have to figure out all the things that might have that in there. And then you have to get your child to eat them, which when you have a child with autism is not an easy task always. So I understand where people are coming from. But once you get the kind of the foundations of it in place, it is no more difficult than any diet. Instead of this bread, you use this bread, or instead of this snack food, you use this other snack food. And so once you get going and you find a few staples your child will like, then it's really no more difficult than any other diet. And as they feel better and they're more calm, they're more focused, your family is more, happy and calm, and you just have more space to do any little extra that you might need in order to get the diet, just to continue to maintain the diet. So I really have found that when I talk to parents, it's really only the beginning. So taking baby steps, maybe, starting with maybe these 10 or 11 or 12 recipes I'm suggesting at first, get them on hand. Just have your child eating some new things before you even take out the old things. And that can make a really big difference in making it easier for them to do.
Wonderful. And we've got a lot of people that are writing in questions here. I do want to say a couple of people one person in particular has written in and said, it isn't one size fits all. And I think we definitely want to acknowledge that yes. They themselves tried to cut dairy out, but they found that it had important nutrients for them and that they lost too much weight when they cut out cheese, and that it depends on the person. And for some of us, this is a benefit that when we cut out the dairy that we lose weight. So I just want to acknowledge that it's not a one size fits all, but many of us found that when, and there's lots of conflicting research about this, right? Mm-hmm. About the gluten-free, casein-free diet, because a lot of people will tell you that, it hasn't been found to be effective. But if you look at those studies, I have some issues with that because mm-hmm. our kids are not one size fits all.
Exactly.
I can only speak personally, and Nancy can speak for her case and in her household, but I'm somebody who happened to be allergic to dairy as a child mm-hmm. and became allergic to wheat as an adult. And then I had a child, and I had a child who was speaking and stopped speaking. Mm. And somebody said to me, well, maybe you should try to remove gluten. And because I was allergic to wheat, I didn't know what that was. I didn't know never heard that phrase before, didn't know what it was. And as they were explaining, and they were saying, oh, it's a wheat protein. I was like, wheat? Oh, I'm allergic to wheat. And then it was a week later that we found out about the dairy protein casein. And my son had an almost immediate beneficial reaction to a gluten-free, casein-free diet. And now he's 16, and every once in a while we'll do a challenge, and we have found that his body does not like it. Mm-hmm. And so we get a huge benefit. And I will be honest with you that my son went from having no language, that when we took out gluten and dairy, he started adding 5 words a day. That is not going to be everybody's experience. I want to be 100% honest here, but that is why I am so adamant about people should at least try it.
Right. Because one of the benefits, Shannon, I don't know if you also had behavioral benefits in addition to language.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Wyatt stopped having his massive tantrums that he was having, like 5, 6, 7 tantrums a day to, a couple of tantrums every week. So yes. he definitely lowered his anxiety, his ADHD lowered when we started the GFCF diet.
That's one of the things I tell people to go back and look at, you can find it online. Phil Donahue in 1984, folks, did a show on milk and milk allergies. And it's terrible. Nobody would ever do this again because it was terrible, but it changed the way a lot of us looked at dietary stuff. He had kids that were there who had been off of dairy for a while, and during a commercial break, they all drank milk. And by the end of the show, you could see how these kids were, and it was horrifying.
Wow.
Because for a kiddo who has a milk reaction, behavior, yes. And it's almost instant. Yeah. So anyway, so we just want you, go ahead.
I just want to comment on the woman that was mentioning that's not one size fits all. I completely agree. I actually have an institute where I train practitioners called Bio-Individual Nutrition because of this very point. Because of course, everyone is unique. Everybody has unique life circumstances, unique genes, unique, everything. And therefore their diet needs to be customized, personalized to their unique needs. So there is not one diet that works for everybody. I would say though that gluten and dairy free is a typical good place for a lot of people to start. I actually have one family I know that absolutely benefits from dairy. So as you said, there are some families, but I don't run across it that often. But I usually take it a step further and say, okay, well, could you also have a challenge with grains or phenols or other things? And until you get the right kind of combination, you might not see all the benefits you're looking for. So I would agree that my message is always the diet needs to be customized to the individual.
Okay, can we address some of these questions that we're getting right now? Yes. Somebody wants to know, how do you know if your kid is sensitive to oxalates, histamine? Also, what is the best allergy test, IgG or IgE?
Okay, great questions. I'm writing them down. So, how do you know if your child, those are some of the other food compounds for people that are new. Histamine or amines are a type of compound. We think of histamine creating that allergy response, that very inflammatory response in things like aged meats and other, bone broths and things like that. And then oxalates being in compounds like nuts and other compounds like that. And so when we the best way to know, sometimes it's symptoms, sometimes it's looking at sometimes it's there are some tests, but there are, usually I'll do a combination of lab tests and symptoms to really get a good idea if somebody might be reacting to a certain food. And then IgG versus IgE, well, it depends what someone has. An IgE reaction tests more allergies. So that's going to be peanut allergies or anaphylaxis type response versus IgG is more of a food sensitivity, a delayed inflammatory response that creates more chronic inflammation, maybe constipation, congestion, things like that. Those are a couple of those. Hopefully that helps.
Okay. Nikki wants to know about refusals. She says that her son refuses to try anything new, that he had no language until 10 years old, and with lots of help, he is verbal, now 22 years old, but he is refusing new foods and is living on a very limited diet.
It's tricky. I actually just saw a great story just the other day on, families are not able to get their child's favorite chicken nuggets or fast food or whatever it is. So this one mom got very creative and she actually made herself a McDonald's French fry box and, all the different kind of wrappings and made her own things and put them inside. And then the child ate them and the child loved them and is really excited now. Now, that doesn't work for all kids, but is it brand specific? Is there a way that you could do something creative like that? Is it a matter of what is it in that food that they particularly like? Is it that it's more salty than the food you make at home? Maybe you can add more salt to it. Is it that they have MSG or other things that stimulate your brain and tell you this tastes good? You're probably not going to be able to mimic that too well, and you probably don't want to because glutamate excites the brain, creates a lot of hyperactivity and an inability to calm one's self back down. So I would kind of look at what are the foods they like. Can you mimic that texture with something else? Let's say they like potato chips. Can you start making carrot chips or something else where just little by little you can take baby steps to expand their diet out?
Yeah, I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to be very unpopular. And Nancy, you can chime in here too, that I think that we as parents get into routines and we never want to shake our kids up too far. But the story that I always go back to is the mom who insisted and told me that, she had a child who would only eat one thing and only that thing ever. And then they went on vacation and they were, someplace where there was a hurricane, and for 3 days they couldn't get access to that thing. And there was not even a question of it. They just couldn't get access. And her kid ate vegetables and ate all the other things. And she said, I don't understand. It was like a magic trick. We get a hurricane and he eats other things. And I don't think that it's one size fits all ever. It did remind me that part of it is, we put things in the house and those are comfort things for us to give them because food is love. Mm-hmm. Let's admit it. And it's the way that we show love to them. But if that thing isn't there, then it makes it infinitely easier. And we are in a circumstance right now where you can't necessarily get your hands on everything, and how, your kids might be experiencing some anxiety over that, but, are you able to get them to eat other things? I don't know, just throwing that out there. I like to be unpopular.
No, that's a great story to hear because that is, I think it helps other people. So many times parents will say, well, their child doesn't eat any vegetables. They start going gluten and dairy free. Now their child eats more vegetables. Also, I completely agree. We do our best. We love our kids. I mean, it's in our nature to nurture them. So if that's give them whatever they're going to eat, of course, that seems reasonable. But I bet you in part, this mom, she couldn't get it. So because there's a little part in our brain, this is a story I like to tell about my husband. He's like a really crazy picky eater. Before we met, he ate like 10 foods. So I mean that with all sincerity. So when our baby was like 6 months old, maybe 8 months, whatever, I was on a call and I couldn't feed our daughter. So I said, okay, I made these fresh peas. I ground them up, feed these to her. Well, he didn't like peas. So I got done with the call and I said, how did it go? Did she eat the peas? And he said, nope, she would not eat those peas. And I said, what was wrong? Did they not taste good? Taste them. What do they taste like? He wouldn't. It turns out he didn't taste them because he thought they were gross. So he tried to feed them to her. She wouldn't eat them because she sensed on some level, there's a danger here. This adult is not feeling comfortable. So there's a way that if we have, that the more resolve and certainty and confidence we have with what we're feeding our child, I believe it does translate to how accepting. And maybe in this mom's case, she was just like, oh my gosh, I can't get that food. So I've got to move forward with what we have. I don't know, maybe that translated to somehow for that child.
And this mom has written in a little bit more information. She said the diet he has is a variety of textures. So textures are okay, but he refuses new foods. And she's asking a very real question, and I really want to honor it, about what do you do if the food that's preferred isn't available and then he refuses to eat anything? Because the one thing that we don't ever want is a child who's failing to thrive or starving. No one wants that.
Absolutely. And I am always there's this rumor out there or whatever that I really dislike, which is that don't worry, eventually your kid will eat, they won't starve. Well, that's not always true in autism. They might not eat. And I mean, I don't want to put more fear. I mean, I'm all about nourishing hope, clearly. But I want to acknowledge this mother. As you said, there is a real fear and concern. And if a family, if that's all their child would eat, you do the best that you can do. What this mother's saying and what a lot of parents are telling me now is, but I can't get that food. So now what do you do? Now you have to do something if that food isn't available. And so that's why in the handout that I have when you register for the summit at nourishinghopesummit.com is if you can't get your chicken nuggets, try these gluten-free chicken nuggets. Every single recipe is 3 ingredients or less. So in this case, it's chicken, eggs, and any kind of gluten-free breading. Gluten-free flour, gluten-free crackers, ground up, anything you can find. And most people can find chicken and eggs and some sort of rice flour or something. So that's one example. So I would say, if you can't find your favorite, I would say try to do your best with trying to create something as similar to what they like now as possible.
Yeah, wonderful. And Nancy, I'm not really letting you have a word in edgewise here, but there was a question asked early on about, can you talk a little bit about seizures? And I think that there is a nutritional component to this we're learning, correct?
Well, there could be some diets that could help. So, I don't think diets cause seizures, but for, I would say many decades, I'd say 70 years or more, I believe, we have known that the ketogenic diet has been used for intractable seizures. So we do know that's one thing. There's certain people that they can't cleanly burn glucose, and for whatever reason, that creates seizures for them. And if they eat a diet very high in fat and they're able to turn into fat burning instead of sugar burning, that does either resolve or improve their seizures. Now, again, everybody's unique. That one dietary approach does not work for everybody with seizures. And I'm not one to say, what somebody should do definitively with a medical problem, but for people that are asking, there can be a biochemical component to these. So then the question is, well, what might be underlying it? And for some people, it might be that inability to break or to use sugars properly. For other people, it might be something else. There's a number of different clients I've had that have found different approaches to be helpful. So I would say in that case, it's tricky. Again, it's a medical issue. If you can get on a telemedicine call with hopefully your functional medicine or biomedical doctor and, kind of see which direction might be the best for you to go. Is it grain-free? Is it ketogenic? What might it be for that person?
Nancy, you've had... Yeah, we've had success with the keto diet. My son had seizures and we put him on the keto diet. What do you think in general about the ketogenic diet? There's a lot of controversy about it.
There is. I love looking up the research on these things. In fact, we should at some point maybe talk about the research on GFCF because Shannon was saying, there's a lot of questions. There's tons of research on the GFCF, in fact, including a study that I was part of. So I'd love to talk about that. But for now, let's talk about ketogenic. There was a really cool study that was done, I'm going to say in the last year or two. It's on my website. If you go to nourishinghope.com, I did a whole write-up of the science. I spoke with the author. I took some of his data and made some new charts to make it easier to understand. The gist of it was they took a group of people with autism. Half they put on the ketogenic diet, half they put on the GFCF diet. They both did well. They both improved. Different ones might have improved a little more on this diet. Other symptoms might have improved a little more on this diet. But they said kind of overall, the ketogenic diet might have even done a little bit better. Now, 30% of the people dropped out of the ketogenic diet because it's challenging. So my goal is always, well, what diet is doable and effective? So I like to start with the easiest, most simple things first, like a GFCF diet. If that doesn't work, maybe somebody will work their way up. But in this case, both diets were quite effective, and including the ketogenic diet. Now, it wasn't for seizures per se, but it was for people with autism.
Okay,
wow.
great.
Interesting. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the GFCF research, because it depends on who you're talking to. There are lots of, and I'll put my camera back on so you can see me talking. If you talk to people, some people in the world of ABA, they will tell you, there's no study showing that it does anything. But if you talk to anybody in the biomedical world, they're like, what are you talking about? There's 150 studies. and so it's very interesting to me who's looking at what study. I just look at the study in my living room and I go, okay, I'm done. Exactly. But I am interested in hearing about the studies that are there. What do you have to say, Julie?
Yes, so there are lots of studies. There are studies looking at the opioids in the urine. So gluten and dairy, if they're not broken down properly by digestion, they can create these proteins that can leak into the bloodstream, and they can create they can fit in the opiate receptor like morphine does or heroin does, and they can create a lot of addictions to those foods and a lot of cognitive challenges, behavioral challenges, all sorts of things. There are a number of studies on that. Now, there are a couple studies saying, that opiate thing, we can't replicate that. Well, there was another study that came out that said, in order to replicate it, you have to properly process that urine you're sending to the lab. It has to be, I think, kept really cold or something, or those compounds will degrade. So, the studies that show they didn't find that. I'm wondering, could it have been that? Because there are a number of studies showing that for people with autism, they do have these opioid compounds specifically related to gluten and dairy in their urine in higher amounts. And we know in other studies that they can cross the blood-brain barrier and they can get in the opiate receptor. So that's one. We also know that people with issues with gluten and casein that have autism improve digestively. Their digestive symptoms improve when they're on a gluten and casein-free diet. There are studies that show that gluten and casein can be inflammatory for the digestive system. And a study that I was part of was published 2 years ago now. It was with Dr. Jim Adams, who is the lead, who is an amazing researcher and a father of an adult daughter with autism. I consider him a mentor. And we did a study looking at the gluten casein-free diet along with 5 other nutrition interventions, a multivitamin mineral formula, essential fatty acid, and so on. And we found 4.5 times the developmental age improvement. So, almost 7-point increase in IQ, and improvements in autism symptoms, anxiety, depression, irritability, the sociability, the list goes on and on. And so for that, what do I want to say about that? The developmental age. So, it was a 1-year study, and you'd expect a neurotypical child to develop 1 year in 1 year. And you'd expect a delayed, somewhat a developmental delay to develop less. So that seems normal. They developed the control group developed 4 months in the 12-month period. The group that got the interventions developed 18 months in that 12-month period. They developed 4.5 times as fast and started catching up to their peers in that they were beyond what you would expect developmentally in 12 months. So those are just some of the results from the combination of these approaches.
Somebody wants you to speak about the supplement study, the study you did with supplements.
Yes. So the supplements was part of that study. So we looked at a multivitamin mineral formula, essential fatty acid blend, digestive enzymes, carnitine, and Epsom salt baths. So people would soak in those. And parents found now the multivitamin mineral formula was added first, and each thing was layered month after month. So the parents found the biggest benefit they felt with the multivitamin mineral formula. I'm always curious, if we mixed those and moved them around, would they always get the best benefit with the first thing that we did? Or is it specifically that multivitamin? I do think a multivitamin mineral formula is very effective. Dr. Adams did a number of studies before this with this very multivitamin mineral formula, first taking the kids and just doing a nutritional workup on them, and then adding the supplement in. And he found improvements in the nutritional markers and the nutritional values and the markers associated with improved methylation and sulfation and things like that. So there are a number of studies looking at supplements.
Okay, but is this a point when we're talking about multivitamins where we should touch a little bit on the MTHFR? Because I know some people run out and get a multivitamin, and it can actually be a multivitamin that has an ingredient that, come to find out 2 years down the road, their kid has tested positive for the MTHFR, and that's not the right multivitamin for them. Do you want to talk at all about that?
Sure. So MTHFR is a gene that helps us to convert folate into the active form, this methylfolate that we need. We know a lot of people with autism have problems with methylation. In fact, a study done by Dr. Jill James showed that actually, there were a couple studies. She's done many studies. But one of the studies that was done was looking at these methylation markers. They looked at these very specific markers in total, and found that when these collection of methylation markers were looked at, it had an 80-some% accuracy in determining autism. So they were almost, we see in autism, it's all subjective. Do you have these symptoms? We look for them, we mark them down. Are they severe enough? This was the first kind of quantitative thing saying we can almost predict autism based on these markers. Again, it's not diagnostic at this point, but it was so accurate. They thought, we're really onto something. These kids really have this methylation issue. And one of the methylation, important genes for methylation is MTHFR. And so we need to be able to convert the folate that comes in the form of folic acid that's fortified in our grains, that comes in a lot of multivitamin formulas, to the active form of methylfolate. And if we don't have proper MTHFR functioning, then we can't make that conversion. And without that, all of methylation can suffer. Also, like I said, they often have multiple methylation genes, so that can compound the challenge as well. And so getting good forms of folate in your food and getting a proper form of folate in your supplements, a folinic acid or a methylfolate, depending on who you are, can make a really important difference.
Julie, you have a 2-minute clip that you gave us, but I don't know, we have more questions too. I don't know how much of it you've already covered than the clip. Should we show the clip? Should we keep with the questions? What do you think? What would you like to do? And we've got time to do both.
It doesn't matter to me. I've never, you can ask my husband, I hate video. It's totally, so I never even really watch most of my video clips. So, we could go.
Well, let's give you a break. Let's give you a break. You rest for a second. It's only 2 minutes long.
Okay,
let's take a look at the clip. Then we're going to come back and ask some more questions.
Okay.
So take a look, you guys. This is Julie Matthews, Nourishing Hope. Register for that webinar right now.
So this is happening. Certainly there are things we can do for prevention in the future, but because this epidemic is upon us now, what would be the top 3 things you would recommend for creating a better life for people with autism?
I would look at diet number 1, and I would start with something simple that everyone can do, which is take out artificial ingredients, artificial colors, flavors, preservatives, MSG, all of that. It's a really easy way, but we can see dramatic improvement with our children with ADHD or autism or any of them. And then looking at taking out the inflammatory foods. For children with autism, it's often gluten and dairy. Can be very inflammatory. They creates an inability to digest them, and they actually end up with opiates like morphine or heroin that are floating around that can fit in the opiate receptor and trigger a very similar brain chemical response. So getting out the inflammatory foods or the foods that are causing neurological challenges, and then adding good healthy nutrition in, because a lot of them have underlying, let's say, methylation issues or things that require good folate. So just even simple things like getting good vegetables into your kids. I know that can be challenging with autism. Particularly, we know that they are known to be picky eaters, and there's a number of reasons for that. But I really like to encourage parents not to despair and to keep going, because you can get really creative with texture and you can start to make vegetables. I just had a client the other day in this program that I'm doing, and the mom wrote back and said, my child is eating vegetables for the first time. And they're not earth-shattering ideas, but they are creative ideas that I think a lot of parents sometimes get stuck. So if we can just make healthy foods more kid-friendly, then we can start to get them to eat healthier.
Well, where can we go to see some examples of that? Because that does seem like a simple thing that we can do right away that can change the lives of our little ones.
Absolutely. So they can find more information. My book's called Nourishing Hope for Autism, and I have a website, nourishinghhope.com. And there's all sorts of helpful information, recipes, and things to help parents get started.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for giving so much hope to so many. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I don't know if I've ever heard the better name of a website in my life, nourishinghope.com, because nourishing our bodies, nourishing our souls, nourishing our children, is there any better way to live better? Thank you for your courage to nourish yourself, to nourish your little ones, to nourish the world, and to continue on this journey.
Wonderful. And so for people who have joined us late, you're getting ready to have this ginormous summit. Tell us again when it is and what the details are so that they can start to register.
Yes. So it's nourishinghhopesummit.com, and it is going to be April 20th through the 26th. And it is going to be free. There's 35 interviews. We have Dr. Adams talking about the study that we were part of. We have Dr. Martha Herbert talking. She's a pediatric neurologist. We've got from Harvard. We've got all sorts of people talking about how to cook in your kitchen, creative ideas for picky eaters. We've got a whole picky eater section. We've got more advanced diets. We're going to talk about ketogenic diet with an expert, a PhD who started studying ketogenic diet for divers in the Navy who had gotten brain injuries. I mean, the list goes on and on. Really exciting topics. So they can go there, register for free. As I was saying, turns out that well, I guess those 3 tips were, I guess I was right on point. It's funny that I had the same tips today that I did then, but I guess, they are obviously 3 very important points. But yeah, they can go there and they'll get the handout, 3 ingredient recipes that you can make at home right now that you probably have in your refrigerator or that you can get at the store. On the form there, or on the handout, there's a little short grocery list of, 20 items that are the recipes, carrots, chicken, eggs, kale, just simple things. And most of the grocery stores do have those in stock. So a great way for people to get started with some really healthy things. And as I was, the one thing that from the clip was the kid-friendly component. That is something we only talked a little about today that I think is really important because there was a study done, I briefly mentioned in the clip, on picky eaters. And autism, there are some, not only are they picky eaters, I think, I forget all the stats right now, but they also had 3 or more picky eating behaviors, including 2 that only existed in the autism group, which was pica, which is eating non-food items, and pocketing food, which is, not swallowing it. So we know they have very specific eating needs and habits. They have sensory issues. So if you're not tasting the food very well, because maybe you're zinc deficient, and you've got texture issues, eating like slimy, like kale is going to be highly offensive. So let's make kale chips. Crispy, crunchy, salty. Rarely do I have a child that I found that doesn't like them. But again, just sometimes it's simple things that parents just aren't aware of. So I really like to look at that. So, and then when you also register, there's 2 more guides, and one of them are kid-friendly recipes. And so there's more recipes there. And then I also have a 12-step guide that comes from my program. I give you all the steps for free, all 12 steps, baby steps through advanced steps on how to eat a healthy diet and how to make it kid-friendly, and then how to advance it with some of these other concepts.
And all of this is free when you register for the summit, and the summit is free also, Julie?
Absolutely, it's all free.
So you really can't go wrong, you guys. And the place that they want to go to register for the summit is?
NourishingHopeSummit.com.
Okay. Now, many of you are writing in and saying, well, can I have the link to this study that she was talking about? Can I have the link to that study that she's talking about? Go to nourishinghope.com so that you can get all the information that Julie has, and you can be having a conversation with Julie, because we would be posting things all day long. Somebody else wants to know, we've tried to give our son supplements to support his methylation pathway, but he has a corn intolerance and had a negative reaction, behavior and mood, to a supplement. Our naturopath prescribed pure encapsulations. Can you recommend a clean brand for someone with a corn allergy? And maybe that's a question they need to ask you, because I bet you have more questions for them.
Yes. Yeah. Sometimes it's hard for me to fully answer a question. What was the supplement? What were you looking for? But a lot of times vitamin C is derived from corn. So there are some people that might react. I've had some clients very sensitive. And so they would need to find a brand that didn't have any of the ingredients derived from corn. So, yeah.
Okay. Nancy, I feel bad. I'm not letting you squeeze in. You jump in if you have a question for Julie, okay?
Okay, I will. One of the things that we were talking about, getting kids to eat non-preferred foods, what you can do, which is based in ABA, what my therapists have done, is you give them the non-preferred food, but follow it up with the preferred food. So you introduce tiny, tiny amounts. Is that something that you recommend, Julie?
I think anytime you can expose a child to a new food is a good thing. So if they're, I wouldn't necessarily say, okay, let's give them a cookie before we give them. something healthy. But if they're not going to eat the healthy thing, and the first way we can even get them to eat the healthy thing is to do some sort of a reward in the short term, but now they get exposure to it over and over, and they're probably eating the preferred food to begin with anyway, then I do think that that's a fine strategy for the short term. Anything we can do to expand their mind to the fact that these aren't scary and that they ate them and they liked them, I think can be a positive thing. Now, there might be better ways to do it. I mean, I'd rather not give the preferred food if it's not an ideal food. But like I said, if they're already eating it anyway, it'll give you some leverage. And I feel like, and sometimes kids just need to get over the fear of the food by being exposed to it.
Yeah. And Julie, I'm a big fan of sneaking things into things and not telling people. And I always say to people, I admit that my son is not a picky eater. I don't know how I lucked out in that lottery, but I lucked out in that lottery. He's epicurious. It is my husband. You talked about your husband only having 10 foods. I think my husband could beat your husband. And my husband had not seen a vegetable up close for at least 10 years before we started dating. And I started sneaking things into, like, the meatloaf. I sneak broccoli and carrots into the meatloaf instead of the bread and the cheese and the egg. And I swear, to this day, I don't think he realizes. He's like, this is the best meatloaf ever. And it has none of the bad stuff and all the good stuff. And he ends up getting like 2 servings of vegetables. This is my husband, you guys.
I understand.
Right? But are you a fan of sneaking things in when it's our kids, or do you think it pulls them further away from understanding what they're eating?
I think it could be either way. And I think you need to understand your child in order for this strategy. I love those ideas. I love sneaking things in because sometimes, I don't know, kids, they just, they don't want it, but if it's there, they don't really mind. The one challenge that I would caution some parents is super picky eaters. If they only eat, let's say, 2 proteins, let's say they eat meatballs and something else, and now you've messed with their meatballs and now they reject the meatballs and you only got 1 food left, or that's a little dangerous per se.
Okay, be careful.
So I would say it's all about knowing your child. With that said, I would say a vast majority of my clients sneak healthy things in because their kid doesn't mind, their kid doesn't notice it, they get more nutrition in, just like you said. So for the most of the time, I think it's a great strategy. It's just, you really need to know your child to know that, because what we want to do is we never want to lose trust with our child around feeding them, because it can be difficult to get that back.
Okay with my husband, but not so much with our
kids.
That's
right, exactly.
I love it. I want to make sure before we run out of time, because we're down to the last 4 minutes here, that we tell people again, there is this summit, and tell them the dates again, Julie.
The summit is April 20th through the 26th. And so that whole week, starting on Monday, there'll be talks every day, and they can go to nourishinghhopesummit.com to register for free.
Okay, and is it a certain time each day? And tell us about that.
During each 24-hour period, they will have access to any or all of the interviews that day. So if there's specific ones on that day, they can listen to those whenever they want to. Wonderful. So you can do it on your own schedule, but you got to make sure that you look at the calendar and go, okay, I've got 24 hours. I want to see this interview with this person. I've got 24 hours. I'm going to fit it in where I can do it. Exactly.
That's very clever, Julie. That's very smart of you.
Thanks. I mean, I like to make things as easy for people to be able to make use of them as possible. So I want to make it accessible for people, and also put it in an order that they can wrap their they can make good use of that learning. And if they go to the summit page, nourishinghhopesummit.com, they'll see all the days and all the speakers, so they can plan it out ahead of time. If they know they've only got limited time, they can mark their calendar now with the ones they really want to see. And if they say, you know what, I really love these, I can't see them all right now, or whatever it is, there is an opportunity to buy them and then own them for a lifetime. So you can go back to them as many times as you want. And so I wanted to really make it accessible. I know that during this time, people might not have a lot of extra funds. And if they don't, I want to make everything available for them for free. I want parents, obviously I want kids to get better and feel better. And I want to support parents during this difficult time as much as possible.
Well, that is awesome. So you have nothing to lose. Go and register. Then you'll get the recipes. You're going to get those 3 handouts, and you'll be registered, and you can see them on your own time within those 24-hour periods. And if you need more, there is more. In fact, if you need more from Julie has other services too. You take clients on to help with more, entrenched issues, and she is available to do that all through nourishinghope.com. Nancy, we love her, don't we?
We do. You're just a wealth of knowledge, Julie. And it's so nice to know that these are simple things you can do to make a difference in your child's life. It's very empowering.
Absolutely.
That's wonderful. Yes, trying just a simple thing or two. Just start wherever you are and see. Baby steps, little steps, step by step can really make a big difference. You don't have to do it all overnight. You can just start incorporating a few healthy things, the few healthy gluten-free things, and then before you know it, little by little. So I just want to encourage families to, stick with it.
Wonderful. And we've got a minute here, and I want to tease about what's happening later on today and what's happening next week. For those, and I don't know if you two know this, we've been doing a morning show for Autism Live this week and an afternoon show. This afternoon, we're doing the last of those special shows. It's called the Card Heroes Tribute, and where we're having people who are card heroes. You're not going to want to miss it. It's at 2:00 Pacific time. That's 5 p.m. Eastern time with Dr. Doreen Grant-Pichet. It is her birthday. If you love this woman like the 3 of us do, make sure you tune in during that hour, say happy birthday to her, and see some of these amazing card heroes. But I also want to let you know, next week on the show, really quickly, on Monday, we've got a special education attorney, Bonnie Yates, on, and the Pocket OT, Kara Kaczynski, is going to be joining us to talk about OT things you can be doing at home. On Tuesday, Elaine Hall from the Miracle Project is going to be here to talk about the sequel to Autism the Musical. It's premiering on HBO just in 2 weeks. You're going to want to hear from her. On Wednesday, we have Dr. Doreen Grant-Pichet answering your questions for Ask Dr. Doreen. On Thursday, international speaker and autism self-advocate Carrie Magro is going to be here with us, and I got a message of hope for everybody. And then Friday, Nancy and I are going to be back here with documentary filmmaker and autism advocate disruptor Vena Tiero, which we're very excited to welcome Vena back to the show and hear about her new documentary, that believing in miracles in spite of the autism, in spite of autism is what the name of it. So Nancy, pretty exciting week, right?
Good week, Shannon.
It's April. How could we deliver less?
Right.
So that's all happening. But be registering for that webinar right now. Nourishing Hope, not webinar, summit, excuse me. NourishingHopeSummit.com. Yes?
Yes.
Did I get it right? And go to nourishinghope.com for more information, all things Julie Matthews. But come back here at 2:00 in just a few hours, 3 hours, to see that Card Heroes and wish Dr. Grant-Pichet a happy birthday. We're out. But until then, give your kiddos a hug from me.
And yourselves a hug from me. And thank you for joining us, Julie.
Thanks you so
Julie.
much.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Happy
Bye.
Easter, happy Passover.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.